On this episode of VacconJohn Unplugged, I spoke with Jason Bingham, and Jason is the founder and owner of Sewer Stormers in Southern California. So he's a private contractor that does a lot of work in our industry with a VacCon. He's been in the industry since 2011 and founded Sewer Stormers in 2025. A lot of good technical conversation, as well as just good advice for anybody running a VacCon or other equipment in the industry. Let's get into it.
Fire it up!
Some of the stories we can't tell.
You don't get a second chance to make a good first impression.
Now I actually
Now you know me.
Now I know you.
Yeah.
All right. What's up, Jason?
Hey, what's going on, John? How you been, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. So it's great to have you on the show. Thank you for spending the time with me today. And
Thank you for having me, man. Looking forward to it.
Of course. I mean, so just to know a little bit of history about us, I talked to you before Tri-State, I think, back last year, but we met at the Tri-State show in Las Vegas last year.
Yep.
I had a podcast booth set up. We sat down and we actually recorded a podcast, but we got cut off because the trade show shut down because our podcast booth was at the
checking us
trade
out.
show.
They said, you guys need to go.
They were flashing the lights. They were cranking the music up. And after that, the way I was recording the podcast set up, and anybody that's in social media or production or anything like that, this is a nightmare of what happened. But I got back to Florida, corrupted SD card, lost everything from our show. And I was like, oh, man, what am I going to do? I was down in the dumps for a while. But so now I've set up to where we can do this remote, which is going to work a lot better for the podcast, but also it gives the ability for us to sit down again and not get kicked out by somebody at the trade show, which is awesome.
Precisely. No time frame on this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jason, just a little bit about how you got into the industry. So I know that your company is Sewer Stormers and you're established in Southern California. Tell me a little bit about what Sewer Stormers does. What are you all about?
So we're a full turnkey sewer and stormwater pipeline maintenance company. So we have one VacCon, we have a camera van, and we perform jetting, CCTV, hydro excavation, lateral launch, stormwater maintenance, including BMP maintenance, because out here in California where I am, stormwater pollution prevention is a huge deal. So that's a whole niche kind of business in itself, but they all kind of intertwine together. And we're also looking to add on actual maintenance and repair services. So we have a couple big customers now that love what we do on the maintenance side, and they're like, hey, can you do this? And I go, sure. I just got to build up the company a little bit, give me the work and we'll see what we can do. So my skills range everywhere from running the vac truck to the camera van to actual dig and repair. I was a service and repair plumber in a past life for 5 years, so that experience definitely carried over to what I do now. But yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell what we do. We're trying to become California's leader in the pipeline maintenance industry, because I definitely see a vacuum, if you will, of companies. I mean, just in San Diego alone, I think there's only 3 of us, and there's a lot more pipe than 3 companies could handle. And, I definitely see the mentality shifting on the municipal side from trying to do everything in-house to, no, we need to supplement some of this workload with contractors. It's just too much. The mandates keep changing. The EPA keeps changing. Everything changes every year, and it gets stricter and stricter. So
some of these population bases are so big where even if they tried to do it all themselves and planned for it, growth is crazy too.
It'd be crazy, because that's another part of the business too, is the pre-acceptance side of new sewers. So like you mentioned right now, the development, I mean, there's some places where the job site's a mile long and they're putting in 500 homes. Well, all of that sewer and storm drain, as well as the water and gas and all the wet utilities and dry utilities, they all have to be tested and maintained. And in the turnover phase, that all has to be pre-accepted CCTV to make sure it was installed correctly. And then after that, my goal is to then get with the property manager or HOA association and then set up a long-term thing, because I think people's mentality about, well, it's in the ground, I'm just going to forget about it now, it's good to go, that's going away. We know that even a PVC line is going to need jetting some point in time of its life. Yep. It just depends on what's going in it and who's doing what and all these other factors, but maintenance is necessary. It's not just an afterthought anymore, it's a requirement.
Yep.
And so that's kind of where my business is really trying to lead the way, is get into helping some of these property managers who, because out here in California, the property line is a hard line, and neither the municipality crosses that line or the resident or private owner of that property. And so the city still requires them to perform this maintenance and verification of this maintenance. And that's something that I'm trying to get onto, because a lot of the times they go, well, where do I get one of these vacuum trucks? Where do I get this jetter truck? How do I even do this? What is even this work? Because I can't tell you how many times when I do take my vac truck out to a job, when these property managers and private owners see it, they're like, oh gosh, I thought this was just some specialty thing that only the city did. No. You have the same thing they do. You own it as versus them owning it.
Yeah. And so you mentioned like how you started off plumbing on the plumbing side. So you were kind of in a adjacent industry, but what steered you into getting into this line of the business specifically? Like, other than that, was it the vacuum effect you talked about?
Well, so it's funny, actually, a little bit of correction here in the timeline. So I started doing this type of work first. There's a competitor of mine that my mom is actually the general manager of that business. And so when I was 15 years old, wasn't doing so well in high school, not really my thing, one of those guys that needs to be outside, not in a room. I was like, hey, can I come work after school, or can I come whatever, because this we know ultimately this isn't going to work for me. And my mom understood, and so she got me a job there as the yard boy. So I started off just cleaning trucks at the end of the day, helping dump vac trucks, cleaning confined space gear, organizing traffic control, getting trucks loaded for the next day. So I started at the very, very bottom. I then progressed rather quickly, and people noticed my work ethic, and people noticed how I was a go-getter, and I was always interested in learning, and I always asked why, and I was always, trying to figure out what they were doing so I could do it, because I saw I fell in love with it right away. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. This is so niche and so specialty, and these trucks are awesome and what they can do, and we get to play with cones and flashing lights and safety. We get to do all the cool stuff that most kids, when they drive by my jobs now, they're all, and that's what captured me. And so I started doing it, and I actually became a camera operator first. So at 16, I got my first PACP certification, and I was running a camera van. And I did that up until I was 18, and at the time, prevailing wage wasn't really a thing yet, which is something we could get into later when we talk about, somebody coming to this field and what they could make and stuff like that. But at the time, it wasn't. I was making $16 an hour, and that was good for an 18-year-old kid. I thought I was happy. Yeah, I thought I was doing just fine. But then I met somebody at a parts house one time when I was going to pick up some parts for a repair job. And he goes, oh, what do you do? Who you with? And what are you doing? And I told him, and he goes, oh, well, have you ever thought about being a plumber? I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, is it intermingle? Like, would I actually? And he goes, oh yeah, dude, it's the same thing, just smaller. And I go, well, what would be the money side of that? And they go, well, commission. Oh, so you're saying I can get a percentage of a job rather than just be paid an hourly wage all the way through the job? And he goes, you can get an hourly wage plus commission.
Changed
Whoa,
the game a
all
little bit
right,
on you.
yeah, and I started, I'm not the best at math, but I'm like 25% of 10 grand. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
So I unfortunately came to my mom and said, listen, I want to go try something else. So I left and I did service and repair plumbing, worked for a couple bigger names out there and also a bunch of small shops. I ultimately progressed to commercial service and repair, which was probably the happier plumbing that I did. It was easier. There's a shutoff valve for everything. There's an access panel, a clean out, everything. Residential plumbing is really finicky. I understand people in their homes. It's tough, being in somebody's house. That's a tough thing. You want to respect it as much as you can. Some people are a little overboard on it and some people are underboard on it. And so it's like trying to find this mix, and it was good. I enjoyed my time as a plumber, but I always had a drawback to this industry, the wastewater, actual big pipe. I'd see trucks going by, and the back trucks going by, and I'm like, gosh, man, why did I give that up? Then something came along called Prevailing Wage. This was 2016. And for people who don't know, in California and some other states, but predominantly California, you have to be paid a certain rate for what you are doing based on this scale that the state comes up with. So right now, just for people who don't know, a vac truck operator in the state of California working a prevailing wage job gets paid $102 an hour. Wow. That's really, really good money. And I immediately was like, I think, and of course it was less back then, but it was still a lot. It was still like $85 or $90 an hour to run a vac truck. I'm like, man,
and this is something like I don't know anything about any of this, so yeah. I'm guessing that most of the states in the South don't have prevailing wage sets.
No.
It's definitely something out west that it's more prevalent there.
So there's a federal prevailing wage that exists in the whole country. It's called Davis-Bacon, but it has to be federal money. It has to be coming from Washington, D.C. to whatever the project is that they're working on.
Gotcha.
Then you have state level prevailing wage. So off of my knowledge, I know Oregon, Washington, Illinois, a lot of the states up northeast, like New York, stuff like that, they have some stuff like that, right? So it's definitely based, but so California is the hub of it, though. That they started it back in 2015, I believe it was. Like I said, I heard about it in 2016, and how every single city job now is prevailing wage, which is totally accurate. Any money that comes from the state of California to a local municipality has to be a prevailing wage project. So essentially, they created this so that way unions that are out here who normally bid on these public works jobs have the competitive edge going against private companies. Because back in the day, they were paying me $16 an hour. Well, the union guy was making $36 an hour. And so it was really easy for private business to get some of these jobs. So to even it out, they went with this style of work. So I came back to this side, ultimately going back to downstream. A competitor, I guess I'll give them a shout out. And they took care of me. I did great there. I learned all of it and got my Class B ultimately later. But, still I was on the vac truck all the time because being a camera operator, it gives you this unique perspective when you're watching the jetter clean something. So I had the ability to kind of close my eyes and imagine what was happening. So I was always the go-to guy for the crazy jobs because basically I would camera it, see what I needed, go get the truck. We had a couple guys there that were just drivers, kind of older dudes that were like, I just drive truck. So great, you drive the truck, I'll operate it. And I would clean the line, and then I would check it and clean, check. I did all the crazy one-off jobs, which was fun in the beginning, but then it also got a little bit rough because you're like, man, I would love to just run regular sewer pipe all day and not be cleaning these huge, massive pipes. Yeah, and getting beat up, because the vac trucks do beat you up a little bit. I mean, people don't realize it, but when you are doing the tougher jobs and you're running the truck full bore, and that heat and just everything, it gets to you. And so did that, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go try to work for a city. So I went to 3 different cities out here in Southern California. Me personally, I'm not geared for that type of work. They're a specific breed, and I'm just a little too much of a go-getter for them. Mm-hmm. So I ultimately, went through 3 of them, was like, you know what, this just isn't for me. I need to go back to the private side. And so I went back to the private side, worked for another company, became their RMO, basically their responsible managing officer for the company. I got the contractor's license. And, the relationship kind of broke down there, and we both separated ways. And then that's when I founded Sewer Stormers, because I realized that I have the experience now, and whatever I don't know from running a business, I can learn. Just a quick history on my family. Like I said, my mom's the general manager of a huge company downstream, and then my father owns his own construction company. My grandfather owns his own construction company. My other grandfather, who passed away, worked for Bechtel Engineering, was a senior engineer for them, built power plants and all kinds of stuff. My other uncles owned his cousins. So it's just in my blood, and I knew that I would have to get to there, because I have such a unique approach to this industry that I'm really hoping it can be a game changer for...
Yeah, it would definitely be something that separates you from other people in the industry, as far as somebody looking to hire a company to come in.
Right.
So a couple of things, and just a little background on, like, for the listeners of how I met you and how I was like, oh, I got to have this guy on the podcast, is I call myself a vac truck nerd. And I would also classify you in the sewer nerd talk. I mean, we are into it, right?
I mean, we could battle it out, dude. We can go statistic for fact, and see who's coming on top.
Yeah, the listeners are going to find out really quick once we start talking about some of the things I'm sure we're going to get into on this episode. Like, you get really detailed on stuff, and like that really goes to show when you're talking about these guys that saw you as the yard guy, being so detail oriented, high working ethic. Like, that stuff is what makes me say, hey, first contractor that's being on VacconJohn Unplugged has to be Jason, because we can talk about that. Yeah, we can talk about so much in detail, to where a lot of this in our industry, I've always kind of thought of it as it's tribal knowledge for the most part, when it really shouldn't be. And I think the only result and why it's that way is because it's not an industry right now that's super glamorous. It's not like a lot of people out of high school. It's not there. Oh, I want to be, in commercial mainline sewer stormwater.
I didn't know I was going to be in this.
Right.
I was no way.
Yeah. And I think that's starting to shift. I think a lot more people coming out of high school are seeing some things online and seeing these trucks around. And, it's a trade. Just like the hydrovac industry, guys you want to be a plumber, an electrician, a sewer maintenance, a stormwater maintenance, hydrovac. That stuff's starting to be a lot more prevalent. So that is kudos to all the knowledge you possess. I mean, that's why I wanted to talk to you so much. But then the other thing that I had on my list of things to talk with you about, you kind of hit it a little bit, but I think it's a huge piece of your knowledge, is when you operate CCTV or a camera van or a camera truck, you get to see what's happening down there.
Yeah. That's a huge game changer for anybody.
Most people don't know what's happening down there. They put the nozzle in the pipe, they run that line, and then another crew comes and they're seeing what's going on.
Right.
But having that visual,
or not at all, or they clean the line and then they just move on to the next one.
Right. They're just doing maintenance runs. They're not even thinking about it. They have
no idea what happened, if they even got it, or what was there, or anything. They're just doing No,
So
lever up, lever down.
yeah, that gives you such a huge uh, advantage, knowing what's happening and visualizing it. Even though you're not seeing it, you've seen it so much before. It gives you another level of being an operator of a vac truck.
And a caveat to that, an extension of that too, is repairs. So believe it or not, when I just real quickly in the plumbing, I started off with a company that just did drain cleaning. That's who initially recruited me, okay? And so those are using snake machines and little baby jetters, trailer jetters, to clear drains. It was a big challenge for me at first using a cable machine because there's a lot of plumbing out there, and plumbers who watch this show or listen to this show will know what I'm talking about, back-to-back fittings where it's basically two pipes coming into one, and what can happen is you can shoot your cable across, and if you're not careful, you could damage that other fixture really, really bad. And so once I got to a actual service and repair shop where I could start cutting open walls and seeing how it was actually plumbed together, my drain cleaning skills immediately skyrocketed, because it's like you just said with Camry. If you can't put your eyes on what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish, you're going to struggle forever until you can look at it and go, oh, and you have that moment of, oh.
It's almost like
it'll always be a struggle.
Or lifting the veil.
Yes.
So the way I do it, because when I roll around and teach people training on how to run their combo truck or jetter, or I'm demonstrating my truck to people, one thing I do is a lot of people and listeners have seen my clear demo tube that I use for vacuum, which you're connecting it and you can see the material flying up the vacuum tube. But what a lot of people
want one just to have one.
Right. Yeah, it's a good marketing piece.
Yeah.
But another good thing that I use it for is a lot of these guys have never used a camera truck, camera van. They've never seen that nozzle. So what I do is I'll put a 6-foot aluminum pipe on both sides of the clear tube and run a nozzle in that clear pipe, so that then I'm just lifting the veil a little bit so that they can see that specific nozzle and what the water pattern is, or change it, show them a different nozzle. This is what you use this one for, type of thing. So just that little bit of seeing how the nozzle works is a good portion to have, but in reality, seeing it in that pipe and cleaning is a huge thing.
Same thing, man. I was cleaning a bunch of pipe, and then finally we had a nozzle demo, nozzle company come out and do a demo, and I was right there next to the glass tube, like, and it's, wow, okay. And then you're like you said, and then you go put it in the pipe for real, and you're like, okay, everything is making sense now.
Yeah. So one thing, just, switching horses really, one thing I know that we're going to talk a lot about is your truck and your preferred truck and how you use it. So give me a little bit. I think I'll give a little intro on what I think your truck is. You might need to correct me a little bit. I don't know the year, so you'll have to tell me that, but it's a dual engine truck with auxiliary engine hydraulics.
Yes.
And a 50 gallon per minute at 3,000 PSI water system.
I have it. So it is an 80. It's an 80 at 3 pump. But right now I have all my nozzles set for 60 at 3.
Gotcha. And we'll get into why that's so important.
Exactly.
So you're using 1-inch hose.
Yep.
So everything I said was, what year is your VacconJohn that you run? I thought I'm
2012 or 13. I think
I was going to say 2013. Yeah, so it's in that range. Okay.
Yeah, it's an ex-municipal truck from up in Northern California. So.
Okay. And it's got a fan vacuum system.
Yes, it does.
Which I'm sure we'll talk a lot about. But tell me a little bit about what you love about your truck, and the little things that you like about the setup that you currently have and what you believe in.
So, like you said, I have a VacconJohn with the 3-stage fan. It's 11-yard debris tank. I have a little bit of a kerfuffle with my water storage. The build came with 2 toolboxes on each side where that third and fourth upper water tank would go. I really would like to get up to the 1,300 gallons. I know it doesn't seem like that much to go from 1075 or 1050, whatever it is, to 1,300, but it is. It really is. And that's an extra, I believe when I calculated, it's 3 to 4 minutes of runtime, maybe 5.
Yeah, let's see. I've got my little stats up
Yeah,
here since you
yeah,
mentioned it. So if you're running 1,000 gallons, just for a round number, running a
yeah.
60 gallon per minute water system, you've got about 16.7 minutes of runtime. When you
Right,
jump up to the 1,300 gallons, you get 21.7 minutes runtime. So
right.
it doesn't sound like a lot,
It doesn't, but
but
that's that extra line. That's that
right,
extra pass. That's whatever you're doing, because this is something we could touch on later, but as an operator, you always have a plan for the day of what you're doing. And the first 3 lines go great. And then that 4th line, when you're low on water and you thought you could squeeze it in, and you're like, oh no, I'm almost out of water and I have some grit coming or I have some grease coming. Dang it, I'm going to have to come back to this manhole. That sucks.
yeah,
That's that feeling of like, dang it, I could have prepared this better. I should have known, whatever, but if you're an operator like I am, you're going to beat yourself up over that because you're
right,
like, you should have been more efficient on that. Because in the contracting world, footage is king. I know a lot of city guys go, oh, you guys just blow and go. No, we do not, because we actually have to provide proof that we cleaned it, usually following it up with CCTV. So it's not. We just still, in order to be competitive, footage is king. Just for the listeners, I try to average at least 6,000 feet a day. And I think that's very doable. We'll dive into numbers like you just did here in a little bit. But I mean, I've heard numbers all the way up to 10,000. And then a lot of people try to say 2,500 to 4,500 is good. No.
right. It's funny because it depends on who you're talking to, but also I think on average you're doing 6,000 feet a day, but you get that one day where you get the issue pop,
Yep.
you're low,
Yeah.
or you get that
Right.
day where you're running through, you're not having any hiccups, boom,
Yep.
you're going to go above
And
it.
you're flying.
That's a good
Yep.
average number.
Yeah. So 6 is good for my company. That's where I set the bar at. But getting back to the truck, so wish I had a little bit more water, but I got 1,050, 1,075. And I do have high dump on there, which is super cool. Haven't actually really had to use it though. I have ramps at some of these places, the bins below me, so I don't have to use it. But I did use it once, and this is something that I did want to bring up. When you have a high dump, if you're a contractor starting out or currently doing business and you hate getting bins, because bin rentals in California, these dewatering bins are like made of gold, okay? They're so hard to get unless you got buku bucks to just move some stuff around, okay? Dump trailer. I dumped into, this guy had me do a job, and I was like, hey man, you're a plumber, do you have a dump trailer? And he goes, yeah, but it's got high walls. And I go, how high? And he showed me, and it was probably, probably came up to like maybe right below my neck. So
Yeah, like a
5.5
48 inch.
feet, yeah, like
Okay,
maybe
so-
5.5 feet, because I'm
Okay.
6 foot, at least I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I'm like 6'2". So anyways, I was like, oh yeah, no problem. And we go over to his yard where he had it. We lined the dump trailer with 10 mil plastic, backed up, high dump, boop, right in. So
Awesome.
if you have the ability to get a trailer, which are a lot cheaper than dewatering bins, try it out.
Yeah.
If your truck has that, if not, get a lower bodied one. But that's something I'm looking into, is a quick, easy way to dump a little bit of material, because not every single job is going to be 9 yards worth of stuff coming back.
Right.
It's going to be, most of the time, it's probably going to be 3 yards or less.
Yeah.
So if you can get a dump trailer that can hold 5 or 6 yards, line it with some plastic, it works out really good. So got that. Have the 3-stage fan, which we'll really dive into vacuum stuff, but I love my fan. I mean, it rips. And most times, for the viewers who have older trucks, you'll know what I'm talking about. For the ones who have newer ones, maybe not so much, but it has omnibus controls, which is the digital controls with the single joystick. I'll touch on that in a minute, but basically you run that truck at either 1,600 RPMs, 1,800, or 2,000. And for the newer truck people, you'll know you can equate that to first stage, second stage, third stage, right? I never need to go higher than second stage. I've only gone higher once, and we were trying to lift a piece of asphalt that was very, very heavy, which it did. It did.
Yeah.
And then it made that god-awful noise when it shot into the tank.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought maybe my door was just going to boom.
Yeah. Yeah, you got that vacuum earthquake going on back
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
But like
It's
contrary to what a lot of people that I work with do is, all right, we're going to vacuum, boom, all the way up to 3. We're going all the way up. And I'm like, oh, if it's lifting the
Why?
material, why are you going so fast? Because if you think about vacuum filtration, the faster you go, the less the filtration's the job is
Precisely.
doing. Like the
Right.
vacuum velocity is correlated with filtration. So the higher your velocity is, the harder you're making that filtration work. So
Yep.
if you don't need that extra speed,
There's no
don't use
need.
it.
Right.
Yeah, you don't. You don't.
And it's
So that's
funny
good.
if you look at every competitor's manual for the different trucks that are made in our industry, every single one of them says don't overspeed your vacuum, whether it's a blower or a fan. Use what's only necessary. Is in every single manual I've ever read for every different truck out there. So I don't understand that. You know, it's the same concept. So like we could step to some, like you said, my truck has an 80 at 3. I will never ever run it that high. It's unnecessary in my opinion. I don't need to be up there. Now there's a lot of guys out there that maybe listen or who don't, but there's this common misconception that you need to run the truck at full bore all the time. 80 gallons per minute, full vacuum, otherwise it's not going to work. And that's just not true. And as a matter of fact, once we get into jetting a little bit more, 80 gallons per minute in an 8-inch pipe is absurd. It's you're going to blow out more toilets and more fittings and damage more pipe than you're saving on cleaning time. Yeah, that hose is going to probably pull 1,000 feet if you let it. You know what I mean? But what are you doing? Are you actually cleaning, or are you just, because the other problem is a lot of those guys know they're going to blow a toilet, so then they turn their head all the way down to something ridiculous like 500 psi. You're not cleaning anything.
Right.
You're just spraying water.
One thing I like to tell people, just to kind of put it in perspective a little bit, is it's called sewer cleaning, not sewer flooding.
Right.
Because if you're just using high flow all the time, doesn't matter what the diameter of the pipe is, doesn't matter what's in the pipe, I'm just going to use 80 gallons per minute and push that material, not sewer flooding. Let's scour the wall of that pipe. Let's use high pressure. Let's be thinking about how much volume we're using so that we can make sure that we're spending more time over top of the manhole. Sewer cleaning, not sewer flooding. So I'm sure we'll get into that quite a bit.
And just a quick statistic that I'll throw out to really hammer home what you just said. If you took an 8-inch piece of pipe, I believe I either did the math for a 10 or a 20. I think I did it for a 10. And if you capped off that 8-inch pipe and then you took a garden hose and you filled it up, it would only hold roughly 57 gallons of water. So if you're in 10 feet of pipe and you're pumping at 80 gallons per minute, plus the water that's already in there, if there is some water in there, the water's got to go somewhere.
There's a vapor lock there.
Yeah, it's got to go somewhere.
I know that we're going to talk about, for sure, friction loss, which we'll get into with different hose sizes, because we have some graphs that you wanted to look at, which love it. But let's do this.
I could finish up with my truck real quick, because there's some other things. So I have the 10-inch boom. So I have the 10-inch elbow, which I actually just the other day on that long job I was telling you I did about in Coronado, we used it to hydro excavate. I was sucking up chunks of asphalt that even the contractor that was there to fix the water line was like, "Did you just suck that up? Like, aren't you worried about it getting stuck? Like, we have a little 4-inch trailer one, and if we get a rock this big, we're done." And I go, "No, dude, like, especially once it gets up to the elbow where everything would tumble and clog, I got an extra inch on each side, man, that thing can just go." And so
just for listeners and viewers that are listening that aren't familiar with a VacconJohn 10-inch boom, this is the way it's set up. You have 8-inch Canaflex and 8-inch aluminum pipe extensions or vacuum tubes that run up to a 10-inch elbow. So it takes a step up from 8-inch Canaflex to a 10-inch elbow. And then you have a telescopic boom, but it is a true 10-inch at the smallest diameter all the way into the debris tank.
Yep.
That's how
Yeah.
Jason's not
And
getting those
and right at the end of the boom elbow, that's where that transition is. So there's a reduction there, and then like you said, we have just regular 8-inch tube. So if anything, I'm gonna clog my 8-inch tube, which hey, you just take one of those apart, jam the rocks back through, and then hook it all back up. That's great. But in the stormwater business, doing this is something kind of maybe particular to California. I don't know if they have these in other places, but we have these things called hydrodynamic separators, and basically it's a giant stormwater chamber that tries to catch all the trash and stuff. So plastic bottles, footballs, Nerf balls, baseball, all that stuff. I have clogged plenty of 8-inch boom sucking one of those out, and I recently just did one, and I took all the trash. Like I sucked all the trash off the top of the water, and it just whoop.
Oh yeah. And like you mentioned, some of those items, they're all abstract shaped oblong objects that might fly up the right way and then turn the wrong way inside.
The tumbling in the boom is the most.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to get your clogs.
Yeah. So 10-inch boom. What I was going to say before, like, okay, looking at your truck, let's take it in. You might have some little things that you want to mention, but I was thinking we'll take it in a section. So like a dual engine with auxiliary engine hydraulics. Do you want to talk about like that specific portion of the truck and what you like about it? And then we'll move on to like water system or fan or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the auxiliary engine hydraulics has already paid for itself 4 times. So 4 times now, my truck experienced an issue, whether it was with the chassis. I had the drive line for the front hydrostatic pump, it sheared apart and came apart, which it's normal, and it's things break. So, but in those moments, because I have auxiliary engine hydraulics, and I was, of course, out jetting, my hose is out 200 feet, my boom's all out, my reel's out, everything's right. I can finish what I was doing. I can't vacuum in these moments, but I can bring that hose back. I can put my boom away. I can put my reel away. I can get everything put away and then be able to start remedying the truck to be able to drive, whether it's get it ready for tow, for the drive shaft on the front. We actually just took it off, and then I drove the truck home, and then we got our drive shaft from you guys, fixed it all up, boom, boom, no big deal. So that alone is a savings that I don't think people understand. Now, there are some competitors out there that have a electric power unit to do emergency hydraulic stuff like that. I've never
and we do it as an option too. But
I figured on like a single engine truck, you guys get something like that. Yeah. Okay. So I'm sure they work as good, but for me, it was my full capacity hydraulic pump. You know what I mean? It paid for itself. And the dual engine aspect, same thing. So when this is something you've talked about in your videos, when I'm just jetting, I turn my truck engine off. So I'm standing up at the front with zero noise pollution. The engine is so far back there, even when I throttle it up to get some of the higher flows out of it, it's nothing compared to when that truck is sitting there screaming at you in the face.
Oh yeah, nice easy
conversation. We could talk, the whole 9 yards. It's very quiet. And since I run my pump at such a low flow most of the time, for people who know the omnibus, it's a click on the joystick to raise your 2 clicks, 3 clicks, and I'm at full pressure using my multi-flow valve, which we'll get into. But that alone is very nice. I'm also interested in potentially seeing, and maybe this is something you could touch on, do you guys still do auxiliary engine, but for the vacuum? Could you do a reverse drive?
There are reverse drive, and we are a custom outfit. So
I know, that's what I love about it. I can for sure
do it. But there are some downsides to it just because of mainly the horsepower that's required to run a vacuum system. So that would make your auxiliary engine huge. A big diesel engine.
Got it.
Which since Tier 4 happened, really, and after the price spikes with COVID, you're looking at a huge dollar item.
Got it.
Where once you put it on paper, it's not a great business decision to run the truck that way.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking reverse drive, just again to kind of bring some background into this, with a dual engine truck, we're running the water system off of an auxiliary engine that's on the back deck. That's why it's quiet. And then the other thing that we haven't touched on yet, I know you've mentioned how auxiliary engine hydraulics and the dual engine have paid for itself 4 times over.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that kind of goes unseen is the fuel savings.
Yes.
The fuel savings. I mean, you said it yourself. You turn your chassis off.
Right. I can actually touch on that really good just before I forget this number. So the other day, I had done jetting all day long. It's a gas pony motors or a gas auxiliary engine. That's what I have. So I have a 44-gallon gas tank on the side. I had ran it all day. We were doing roughly 45 to 50 GPM most of the day. I have a nozzle that's set for 50 that I use for small short runs and stuff like that. I went to the fuel station to put diesel in, obviously, but then I was like, I'll top off my gas tank. I only put 7 gallons in.
Yep.
It was like $44, $60, which I know for some of you out there, yes, California's gas prices are that high. It's true. Yeah. It's real.
It's crazy. But then the other thing about talking California geographically too, excuse me, you talk about diesel emissions.
Yes.
Well, you have a leg up on somebody that has to burn diesel fuel while jetting. Right. You don't have to run diesel fuel to jet.
Right.
You are actually cutting down on your diesel emissions.
And CARB, California Air Resources Board, they have exemptions for this specific design. So if you have an auxiliary motor that's gas, you don't have to, the chassis becomes something different. It doesn't count against your total fleet. It's like a half of a truck, basically. And they give a special, so there are municipalities out here who, through shout out MME, their municipal maintenance equipment, I'm sure you guys know them, they're experiencing some traction with that because now the cities can go back to having a diesel chassis with a gas auxiliary motor and not be in any uncompliant situation.
Right. Yeah, so, and then again, I keep finding myself going into some background info here just for people that are listening that might be getting into the industry or an adjacent industry. So this auxiliary engine that runs the water system, when we're talking about auxiliary engine hydraulics, instead of putting the hydraulic pump transmission mounted PTO with a switch in the cab or putting it VEPTO where anytime the chassis turns on, it's on the auxiliary engine. So all you need to do to turn your hydraulics on is crank up that pony motor, and you've got it.
Yeah.
So it's a different way of doing it, but it's one of our favorite ways to set it up.
And I think it's better that way because, again, so on some of the auxiliary functions that you use your hydraulics for, like decanning, draining water out of your tank or whatever, you can turn the truck engine off and you can have that auxiliary engine running at an idle, which is very, very quiet, especially the gas ones.
Oh, yeah.
And perform all the functions you need to do. And you can even do washout. So my whole washout process, my truck engine is off. And so in a time where I'm like, hey, what's it look like in there? What's this? What's that? Oh, let's clean that, or let's do this, or let's look at that. It's quiet. It's
Wow. And people don't think about the idle time. People don't think about idle time, where you're just you might have lunch or talk with a supervisor for the place that you're working at or anything like that.
Anything, and your truck's just idling and idling and idling, and that is so bad for them. Most of the trucks now, the new chassis in California, they shut off in 10 minutes. That's what they did. They just said we'll turn it off unless you bring your RPMs up. So you have to run the truck engine at least 1,000. Otherwise, it'll shut off. And that's even with the VacconJohn. That's with everybody's truck. All competitors, including the VacconJohn. I had a newer one at the company I worked at before I started Sewer Stormers. We had 2. They were single-engine VacconJohns. And that was exactly it. If I jumped out of the cab, I immediately had to go to the operator station and turn up the throttle because the truck would shut off. So no matter what, you have that roar. And it's, I didn't know it was something that was a problem until you experience.
Oh yeah, it goes unseen. It goes unseen.
Exactly. Your ears just start ringing, and you just deal with it. And you're like, whatever. I guess that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Love that.
that's a good coverage on a dual engine setup and running auxiliary engine hydraulics with that dual engine setup.
And with your guys, just real quick with the dual engine,
Yeah,
I know you touch on this a lot. You guys, the gas motor can run it all. So if you want a 50 at 3, it'll do it. If you want the 80, it'll do it. So you're not just beholden to a specific flow with a gas motor. Because like mine's
right.
an 80 and it runs it just fine. It's a V10 gas and it gets me 80 when I need 80.
Yeah, and we do gas auxiliary engines and diesel auxiliary engines, but the big difference between the two, just to kind of go into some detail. Right now, our current offering for new trucks with a gas auxiliary engine is a LS engine, it's a GM 6-liter gas engine. We can also run diesel, which would be the John Deere 4-cylinder industrial style auxiliary engine. That John Deere 4 gets 140 horsepower, where that LS engine gets 167 horsepower. Wow. So you get more horsepower, which allows you to go to the 80 at 2500, the 80 at 2, the 60 at 3, the 50 at 3.
Do you think you could run 100? Do you think you could run the 100 GPM pump on it?
I believe you can if you go up to the 8.8. So we would go up to the 8.8 liter. Yeah, a bigger gas engine. Or if you want a diesel, you could do the diesel.
Yeah.
But the big difference with the guys that are doing the 100 GPM stuff is it changes everything because you're going to inch and quarter.
Of course. But just again, you can go from 0 to 100 with gas.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the thing that I think goes unseen a lot, we talked about fuel economy a little bit, and one thing that I love about the gas system, if we run a diesel system, they're all running off of the diesel tank on the chassis. So you get that 100-gallon diesel tank, you got the DEF tank with it. Now you get that diesel auxiliary engine, you share the same fuel tank, but you have another DEF tank because each engine that's diesel over 74 horsepower has its own DEF system. With the gas engine, we put a 55-gallon gas tank. So now you have your 100 gallons of diesel to run the chassis engine and your vacuum system. You got 55 gallons of gas to run your water system and hydraulics in your case, to where you're like differentiating your fuel economy because you're not taking as many stops to the fuel island, which people don't think of that way, but it's a good way to put it on that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And me personally, like I said, I like the difference. I like the gas versus diesel. Now I understand the whole diesel concept of only having to put one fuel in the truck because unfortunately, whether it's a great operator or a new operator, there are times where you're tired or you're not paying attention and one could accidentally put the wrong fuel into the wrong thing. But that's not something I particularly worry about. I've never ran the diesel, so I can't say that it's better or worse. But I like the gas. It's like I said, it does seem quieter, I would have to say.
Well, and the one thing I tell people too, so first and foremost, the gas inlet, when you take the cap off, most all high flow diesel pumps can't fit in it. Now, if you were to stop at like some normal gas station that has a low flow diesel nozzle, they can fit it in, but we have you can put a lock on it. You can put a big, yellow, orange sign on it. Yeah. But my combative nature of talking to people about this is on a dual engine diesel truck, you have 3 places to fill: the chassis DEF, the chassis fuel tank, the auxiliary engine DEF. And on your truck, you got 3 places to fill: chassis DEF, chassis fuel, auxiliary fuel. It's not more.
No, it's not more, and it's not
DEF in the gas tank.
Exactly. Tank, right? I mean, you can try to make things stupid proof as much as you want, but unfortunately, accidents happen. And that's just the nature of the business. So, so to say, like, I specifically am not going to buy that for fear of that, well, that's fine if you really want to think that way, but you're limiting yourself then on your whole thought process, because the whole point of doing something to the best of your abilities is thinking outside the box. And so if you can tell me how I'm going to save fuel here and I'm going to have less noise pollution, then I'll just put frickin' stickers on the truck that says put gas in this thing. And if you don't, well, then we're going to have a problem. You know what I mean?
We even got a special decal that we have that we use as like giveaways and stuff when people come to the plant. It's a good one that I slap on some of my buddies' trucks and stuff. It says, caution, this machine requires you to use your brain. It's just like anything else.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
But then the very last thing I have on the dual engine segment before we move on, and you might have something else too, but one more thing to cover is a lot of people talk about, well, now I have to maintain the auxiliary engine and I have to maintain the chassis engine. And I get that. They follow similar intervals, but this is something a lot of people don't think of as well. On a single engine truck, which we offer, we do single engine trucks too, but you are running your chassis engine at high RPM for a longer amount of time to where you are going to have issues that arise on any chassis, doesn't matter. But yes, you're running it harder red for a longer period of time, where on a dual engine setup, you're kind of got that balance where you're running the pony motor hot, you're running the chassis hot, you're switching back and forth. So
even distribution of the workload. But my only touch to that is don't we have to maintain everything, John?
Right.
I mean, everything breaks. I mean, I go on these job sites all the time, and there's an excavator down, there's a scraper down, there's a blade down, there's a this down, there's that's broken. Everything breaks, and to just limit yourself to, well, this is how it's always been and how it always should be. I hope that line of thought is going away as different generations take over, because that was my big thing when I first started out. Had a lot of old guys are like, this is just the way it is. I'm like, I don't think it needs to be that way, but okay. You know what I mean? So yeah, like don't allow old thinking to, this is to the listeners, don't allow old thinking to dictate how you do new ways to do things, because if you just give it a chance and you throw out all that old thinking and you come to it with an open mind and you allow that auxiliary engine to do its thing and you see the benefits of it, I mean, the rest of the truck will start unraveling itself too. You know, because we're going to jump to fan, and gosh, how many naysayers are there of fans out there? I'm sure there's people listening to this right now. Oh, fans are no good.
Yeah. They might even look at the timestamps on, if they're watching on YouTube, or they might look at the timestamps and just automatically go towards the fan, because so many people get, it's like a red flag goes up when you start talking about it. But it's one of those things. So I think that's all I got on the dual engine segment, unless you have anything else. But let's move to another thing. Let's go towards your preference.
I do have one. I do have one more thing to just mention. Hydro excavation is also ran off of the same water pump.
Yes.
There are some competitors out there that like to put two water pumps on their systems. They have the water pump for jetting, and then they have the one for hydro excavation. This is all off of the same thing. That pump is rated from 0 to 80 or 60 or 50 or 100, whatever it is. And so you guys run your hydro excavation system off the same pump, that same motor. I think that is a huge plus, because having to use a different system or having to use a whole nother water pump to do that, it's just a bit overkill for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
I believe the main reason why we're seeing some trucks in the industry run dual water pumps, I think it's mainly the way that they plumb the water and the way that they're cooling their system.
Got it.
So if they're using a heat exchanger that requires water to cool the system, or if they're not unloading with a high pressure unloader valve, similar to how we have it plumbed, that water will overheat the system. So the way we set it up and the way that we plumb it allows to where you're unloading when you pull the trigger, you're hydro excavating. When you let go of the trigger, you're unloading and dumping back to the tank. And
it's safer. It's much safer too, because people don't understand that handgun, when it has the full pressure built up behind it, it's actually a little bit higher. So not only are you starting to wear the innards of that handgun out, but when you try to squeeze the trigger, you have to use some serious force to get it to go. Yours it's because it's dead, essentially. There's like a little lag. So you squeeze the trigger and then your pressure starts spiking again. You get the flow back. I like that. I kind of, it's better on the hands. It's better on the body. My brain's adjusted to it. And I think it's a better way to go than just having that full backed up pressure on that gun. Because, I mean, even my low pressure gun, it's starting to show signs of the valve getting worn out in there from the backed up pressure, because it's not an unloader valve on the low pressure side. It's just a regular relief valve. Yeah, so the pressure's a little bit higher when it's just sitting there stagnant, and you'll start to see when you let go of it, it'll spurt a little bit of water out because the valve's trying to close up a little bit. So you can replace all that, and that's not a big deal. But that just, something that I wanted to touch on that I enjoy about the water system on a VacCon. Yeah. You guys have that unloader valve. It is all tied to the same pump, so I don't have two different things that I'm trying to run or maintain or anything like that. One pump to do the whole thing, from body flush to any water circuits. One pump like that.
Yep. Perfect. Well, I think that we pretty much can wrap up on the dual engine segment and the auxiliary engine segment, and then I'll kind of let's you go ahead and decide. Would you like to talk in specifics about vacuum system or water system next, do you think?
We could do vacuum next, because I got some notes here, because that I was telling, so I have a young guy that works for me. He's rents my granny flat for me. His name's Corbin, good kid, and he's got to use both systems now, both a fan and a vacuum, and a PD blower. And he asked me, he goes, so why does everybody use PD blowers? I don't know. Yeah. It's just because they have one, so I must have one mentality. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of.
There's definitely a Me Too portion of that.
Yes.
But I also think that VacCon's really lucky because we have a fan that we believe in that's better for more applications than what most people have on their fan technology. And for the most part, with PD blowers, which we offer PD blowers as well. We sell a lot of trucks with PD blower vacuum systems. That's great. There's benefits to both systems, really. But with fan technology, the big difference between a VacCon 3-stage fan and any other fan out there, it's what it's made of, how it's held together, and that then ties into what we call recovery. So our fan is a 3-stage air compressor, and it is manufactured out of Core 10 steel, and it is welded together. The diameter and the physics behind that fan allow us to plunge the vacuum tube with limitations under the water and pull a straight water. Yeah, any vacuum system will have limitations due to the physics
of the earth.
Of what we're doing.
Yeah.
But just due to physics, and there's limitations to PD blowers, there's limitations to fan. But our fan, once you plunge that vacuum tube underneath the water within its limitations, that fan speed goes down, right? It's getting loaded.
Right.
But the diameter, the make of the fan, and the engineering behind it allows that fan to recover speeds faster than any other fan in the industry, to where we are the ones that can vacuum underwater. And that's why I throw an AeroBoost fan on my demo trucks and carry around a clear pipe, is because we have that ability, and it's much more versatile and much more productive than people give it credit for, because every other truck in the industry prioritizes using a PD blower. And that's really the reason why. And everybody in the industry, for the most part, and it varies in the hydrovac game, but all the blowers are very similar, if not exactly the same.
I'd have to say almost exactly the same. I have some statistics we'll get into here, but just looking at it on my own paper here, I'm like, so we're talking a couple hundred extra CFM, the same vacuum rating. I mean,
yeah,
I don't really see the big difference, other than if you jump up to like a tri-lobe and you get the 27 inches of mercury. So, but even then, according to Roots PD I got down here, at 27 inches of mercury, only 1,700 CFM is achieved at that.
When you're actually loading it.
Yeah.
So it's those performance curves can be very tricky, because the performance curves are the blower itself. Right. And the air routing, the filtration, and the consistency of the material.
Right.
There's so many variables that change.
So many variables, right.
So the best way I like to compare them And on hydrovacs, it's much more popular to go with the 27-inch blower on when they do PD blowers on large rural trucks that are going out in the oil fields and going out and they're self-sustained for weeks at a time. You're going to see 27-inch blowers on them. And one of our trucks, our EXT, has a Robushki 145, which is a 27-inch blower. But I know you have some stats that you want to read off, but the way I like to explain it to people, and I have a video on this, is on combo trucks, the most popular PD blowers are going to be a Roots 824 and a Roots 827. And then we also offer our VacconJohn AeroBoost 3-stage fan. The best comparison that I like to make is pulling 8 inches of air through pulling air through an 8-inch orifice, free air. So I'm going off the rip, top of my head. I'm not going to get down the digits, but a 824 from memory, it's an 8-inch gear, 24-inch lobes, set to 18 inches of mercury for the vacuum side. CFM wise, through that 8-inch orifice, you're going to pull 5,000 CFM free air. When you make the jump up to a 827, 8-inch gear, 27-inch lobes, still set at 18 inches of mercury, but you boost the CFM to where you're pulling 6,000 CFM free air through the 8-inch orifice. Now, once you start loading material, that CFM rate drops because you're carrying material into the debris tank. With a VacconJohn AeroBoost fan through the 8-inch orifice, we're bringing in 8,000 CFM. So that's the big stat that I like to kind of tell people, and it's hard with all the numbers. It's good when you got the graphs laid out. It makes things a little easier. But
yeah, I mean, that's right on. That's exactly what I have. Now, I have a question for you in my own learnings here, and this is great. So on Roots' website, they list the 824 and the 827 as capable of 16 inches of vacuum. Now, is it possible that you guys just set the relief valve, the concho valves higher, and that's what allows you to get that extra 2 inches, or is somebody's data off?
It could be a different style of 824. I don't know without looking at it, but you can.
The RCS 824. Yeah.
They are capable of pulling the 18 inches, but you could also set a truck to 16-inch concho valves. So it really
you
depends.
can adjust that.
Yeah. It's just like setting reliefs on a water pump in a way where you say, hey, I got this 80 at 3,000 water pump, and I want to set this down to 80 at 2,500.
Right.
You can do that. I mean, you're gonna blow your concho valves will scream more often because when you go under load at 16 inches, they'll squeal instead of at 18 inches. But you can definitely do that for sure.
No, that makes sense because the trucks at the last company, they had 80 at 3 pumps, but information plate on the front reel that tells you what the pump can do, it's at 80 at 25. So they had set the relief at 25 because that's what the person who had bought that truck wanted.
Yep.
So that makes sense. Okay. So getting into that then, if you look at those statistics that you just said, and those were just free air, what am I really getting? You know what I mean? Like, what if I'm going to pay for a blower that I'm guessing are substantially more expensive, especially a tri-load, than a 3-stage fan? What is the difference here other than, and we'll get into this, I know, all I have to do is add an air gap or a fluidizer tube at whatever the distance is that I have. So like, let's say the 3-stage fan, do you know the vacuum rating on that? Is it like 15, 16 inches? The new AeroBoost.
Yeah, AeroBoost inches of mercury wise, it's probably in the 15-inch, 16-inch range. We don't really measure it with atmospheric pressure that way.
Right, the water column.
Yeah, inches of water column, you're going to be in that 200 to 210 inches of water column. But that also depends on the where you are, what your sea level is.
Yeah, exactly.
So that changes the temperature changes things. The atmospheric pressure of where you're located changes. Like if you're in Mexico City or Denver or somewhere, your truck is going to operate a lot different than when you are in San Diego or
so
you're
help
in
me learn on that one, John. How does it operate different? Does it get less performance or more performance at higher altitude?
you'll get less performance at higher altitudes.
That is so interesting because there is a
your
place.
atmospheric pressure outside the truck
Uh-huh.
is changing to where then, and I'm not an expert in this at all for the most part, but I have people that I refer to on this because,
of course.
because I mean, I'm not up in the Rockies a lot in my territory, but so Mike Palakia is the regional sales manager out west for us, and he's the one that I usually refer to on the pressure because he goes to places like Salt Lake City, Denver, and then my guys in Mexico and Mexico City is it's a lot different too. So yeah, that does change things a little bit, well, a lot of it, but the temperature too. Like your vac doesn't matter if it's a PD or a fan. Like your vacuum system is going to be more powerful when it is cold outside.
Yeah. No,
When
I
it's hot
could
outside, it
definitely
will
see
not
that.
perform as well. Yeah. So all of our trucks that we're testing in Florida about 10 months out of the year, it's pretty warm out.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of baseline is. We're taking, almost worst case scenario, unless you're sending a truck to, Egypt or Arizona, where it's hotter than where we are, or San Diego. It gets pretty hot there too, I guess. But
that's interesting. That's something that I've never had to really think about, being that I'm in San Diego or right here next to the ocean. It's similar, probably cooler than you guys most of the year, but still right around there. We get our hot days. We also get our cold days. I mean, just this morning at my house, it was 39 degrees this morning, so it does fluctuate. But I guess I've never had that problem. So that's
Right.
really interesting. That's cool. No, I'm glad to learn that because, see, one thing later to everybody watching, doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, you'll learn something new every day.
Every day, man.
Every day you're
Every
going to
day.
learn something new. So I was under the impression then, where I was going with my little spiel is just, at least for here in California, what's the point of paying for something that is more expensive, that is also more sensitive? Okay, people don't, I know you can get into the whole how blowers are designed. The lobes have zero tolerance, less than a human hair. Okay, any sand or dirt or anything in there, any inexperienced operator carrying material into that blower, you're gonna hate yourself. You are, because it's gonna be expensive. It's gonna be time consuming. Yes, you have the plenums and all the stuff like you've shown on your trucks on the videos, which is great. It helps and assists. But if you warp those lobes, if you damage those lobes, it's a full repair.
Tolerance risk is definitely higher.
Yeah.
The little crash course I give, so I do like all the VacconJohn sales schools for all of the sales reps that sell VacconJohn products, and we came up as a team. We came up with an acronym to kind of help out with this, and it's TUFF, T.U.F.F. So with the benefits of running a fan, TUFF is the acronym I use, and there's benefits of running a PD blower, which I'll get into. It's just that the one with T is tolerances. So like you mentioned, the tolerance of the PD blower is very small. It's about the thickness of a business card in most cases, where those two lobes are spinning against one another. The tolerance in between the lobes themselves are thinner than a business card, and the tolerance between the lobe and the wall is thinner than a business card. So if you did get carryover and you weren't paying attention that day, you were vacuuming dry, and you got carryover material into that blower system, yes, it is more of a nightmare. With the fan, 3-stage fan, AeroBoost fan from VacconJohn, the smallest tolerance is about 1/4 inch, a little bit bigger than 1/4 inch. So you have much more berth for those mistakes, your carryover issues that you have. The U in TUFF, I typically say up or underwater, and that is the misconception is that fans can't vacuum underwater. And if you are a VacconJohn fan or follow me anywhere, I post videos all the time of the fan doing just that, vacuuming underwater. Now there's tolerances to where a fan can vacuum underwater to a limit of depth, and a PD blower can vacuum underwater to a limit of depth. Yeah. A lot of people, for some reason, think that PD blower, anytime you flick it on, it doesn't matter the consistency of the material, how deep you are, it's just going to pull it. It's just not the case. They both have limitations, but I hate hearing from from people that they think a fan can't vacuum underwater because we do it all the time. The first F
I do it all the time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, yeah, because you have some stuff that you want to show and you do it all the time.
Yeah.
First F of tough, just to round it out, is fast, and that just goes with vacuum velocity. You have a higher CFM, which makes your vacuum velocity faster. It moves material faster. So if you're doing catch basin work, stormwater work,
Do a lot of that.
Yeah, you're going catch basin to catch basin, clean catch basin, you will load up that truck faster just due to the fact that your vacuum velocity is higher. It has a lot to do with the operator and what they're doing.
I load just as fast, even doing underwater too, and we'll get into how that works with that. But yes, that is something that my helper Corbin has said. He's like, man, this truck rips, dude. I mean, we just put it right over whatever, and it's gone. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, man, for doing this kind of stuff, this is the one you want.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it rips, and there's a misconception, and the reason I think there's such a misconception is because we offer PD blower trucks too, right? But the industry shifted back probably late 90s, early 2000s. It shifted to where everybody offered the PD blower, and once those companies made the shift and said we're only selling PD blowers. Think of a municipality that is going out to buy a vac truck and they're open to anybody coming by. And you got 6 people that come by and try to sell you a truck. One of them's a VacconJohn rep, and then there's 5 other reps that come. 5 out of the 6 are only offering a PD blower. Yeah. So you're getting hammered with gotta have a PD blower, gotta have a PD blower, and then
they have a fan and they don't even tell you.
Right.
They're just like, no, we don't even want to, because we want you to buy this.
We're playing the game, and the industry's like that. I mean,
of course, it's like that in anything.
Yeah, and I think that really puts what I train with my salespeople is it puts the onus on us to become more educational salespeople. We really have to educate ourselves to where then we can be someone that has enough knowledge to help people make the right decisions that are going to help them produce better and make more money and. Yeah. That's really what our ultimate goal is.
I mean, to touch on what you said about the shift, I've, like I said, nerded out myself, and I've looked at trucks from back in the day, probably when, everybody was working at the one competitor that we all know. And if you look at the design of a 80s version of this truck, big giant fan, low water tanks, right? Low body water tanks. And then I think what happened is when the separation occurred and ultimately VacconJohn then started, right, with your dad, and that whole movement there, they didn't understand the physics. So they were, it just got lost in the fray. And so when the people started complaining, customers started complaining, hey, this thing never sucks underwater. I got to do this, and the tube bounces, and it's doing all this weird stuff. The pressures, what's this 60 at 1500 pump? Yep. This is not enough. The hose needs to pull. And so just on and another thing we could touch on, people were not happy with split shaft designs, the transfer case design, because back in the day they were very, very unpredictable and could jump into gear and accidentally run people over or run into a building, or crazy stories that I've heard of these old trucks back in the day. So it's crazy that you touched on the history of it, because you can literally follow why the trucks progressed the way they did, and the reason why was because that was the complaint of the time.
Yep. Yeah, and then there's certain things that haven't really changed a whole lot, and then the very last, before I forget, the last F of tough is the other thing that we really pride ourselves on. We manufacture the VacconJohn Aero Boost fan, the VacconJohn 3-stage fan. It comes with a 5-year fan blade warranty, which separates your vacuum system from anybody else, because you're talking about why would I buy? Well, PD blowers are great, and most trucks in the industry right now are running PD blowers, but we're all using the same type of blower, and there's a 1-year warranty on that blower. And if you induce material into that blower, your warranty is voided. To where if you induce material into the fan, the warranty would be void. It's against manufacturer defect, but you have a longer time period of that manufacturer defect Where if you look at the lifespan of the truck for what most people are using it for, as a percentage, that warranty is in place for a lot longer percentage wise of when you're going to own that truck, right? So that's the other little cap that I put on the end of the differences there.
Yeah, I like to add to that. I guess you can say there's a rule that I always found is, what are you using your truck 80% of the time, 15% of the time, 5% of the time? If that equals 100, which I'm pretty sure it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that directly correlates to what you were just saying of like, you have to know what you're using your truck for and pick the one that's better for you. Like me as a contractor, the fan is the better choice for me because of all of the things you just mentioned. And on top of that, it does perform because my 80 rule is I'm doing storm drain and lower flow jetting and stuff like that. So 80% of the time the fan is my king. And then the 15% of the time I add an air gap and I overcome all the hurdles. And then the 5% of the time where I might have to vac really, really far away, 150 feet, 200 feet, I just introduce air along the way. So I follow the 15 rule, to put that. And then I just take smaller bites. People always want to just shovel all this material into the tube and like think it's just, like you said, magically going to go away when you turn on. No. You have to take bites and let the material travel, let some air go behind it to help get it through the hose, have some air gaps set up along the way to help it breathe, and it'll accomplish all those things. But that's the only time in the 5% where I'm like, maybe the blower would perform just a little bit better.
Yep. And that's the main thing I was going to say when you said, why would I buy it? The PD blower is going to be more effective for long distance horizontal vacuum work, meaning remote hose jobs. And for guys that are wondering, what the heck are we talking about? If you're taking 8-inch, 6-inch hose and dragging it 1,000 feet away from the truck, keeping the truck where it is, and vacuuming 500, 1,000, 1,500 feet away from the truck, bringing it all the way horizontally to the truck, and you're doing that more than 30% of the time when you're working, I would say a PD blower would be a good candidate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
5% of the time, one thing I definitely wanted to talk to you about, being that you're doing that 5% of the time, you're achieving that with a fan, right?
Right.
So I definitely want to hear about your input on how you've done that and what you found, which I know is inducing air, but you have a good way of putting it to people.
Yeah. So it I know water column doesn't directly correlate to mercury, but it does a little bit. So what I do is I kind of cheat, okay? And if you're, let's just, for round numbers here, let's say the fan can do 15 inches of mercury, okay? That's roughly, 16 feet-ish, maybe 17 feet of pole, okay? Vertical pole before you have to introduce air to be able to suck underwater or to really load the end of the tube, okay? If you're just throwing a couple leaves in, it doesn't matter. But if you're trying to load stuff, you're going to have to introduce air. And what people forget about is it's not the top of the manhole down. It's the top of the boom, or basically the base of the elbow down. So you have to account for that, the feet of pipe that's above you to the manhole surface and then below you, okay?
Yep, to where the water is.
Exactly. So I call it 15 feet. I have found that when I'm using some sort of flexible hose for a long distance, because I use either 6-inch corrugated flex hose or maybe even 8-inch flexible tubes that have like flange fittings on the side that I can kind of lay out and stuff like that. But mainly it's just 6-inch flex hose that you buy at Home Depot. It's like the same stuff you put in your garden for drainage, right?
Right.
Works great for what we do. Every 20-ish feet, a little less, 15 to 20 feet, I will cut a small square about maybe that big. Maybe a little smaller, a little bigger, but just one.
So people that are listening, it's about a 1-inch by 1-inch.
1 inch by 1-inch square. Yes, sorry. So that is needed because as the material hits that 15-foot, 20-foot mark, the air that was either behind or in front of that material, either pushing it or pulling it, starts to lose out. It's just like we've been talking about a lot, friction, right? And the material that's moving through that hose. Because if people were able to look into a vacuum hose when it's sucking, the material doesn't go through the center. It goes on the sides. It rides the walls of the pipe. So you need some air in there that's rushing in to then pick that material back up and get it to the next air gap, and then keep going and until you all the way down. So a combination of, because, not on a side one here, people should know that there's pure vacuum and then there's air conveyance. I'm sorry, every single truck, no matter what it is, with the exception of a 27-inch vacuum blower, they're air conveyance trucks. They work off of the CFM principle, because all of our booms are a good 8, 9, 10 feet in the air. You've already lost 10 feet of dig. So essentially, we're almost all at the same. The VacconJohn's like, we can go 6 feet below the manhole. There's a 7, and then the next one's like 8.
Yep.
So no matter what, you have to introduce air.
Yep. You need air conveyance.
Unless you're working in a place like I do called Coronado, where some of the manholes, where you open the lid, the manhole, or your pipe's right below the lid there, like this. And I know you said in Florida it's pretty flat too. Yeah. And so in other places where it's flat, you guys will know what we're talking about. But if you're working in a regular place like City of San Diego, for instance, where we have hills and all this stuff, there's manholes 30, 40, 50, 70 feet deep. You're going to have to introduce air. It doesn't matter what truck you have.
100%. And the air conveyance portion of it, when you're thinking about the physics behind this, you have pure vacuum or vacuum pressure,
right?
Which would be measured in inches of mercury. That's your vacuum pressure. You have air conveyance, but then you have the mixture of air conveyance and pure vacuum, where you're using a fluid atcher tube or a catch basin tube. But no matter what, the way I like to tell people about this, to really put it in perspective, is think about the air as being your conveyor belt. That air is conveying the material into the tank, so you don't want that belt to stop. So when you're saying every 20, 25 foot-ish, you're putting that hole in the hose.
15 to 20. I think 25 might be a little much for a fan. 25 maybe for a PD, but for a fan, between 15 and 20, you would be good. Yeah,
so right there, you put that little spurt of air that comes into that line. It just gives it that boost to keep climbing.
And that's exactly it. And so then touching on the free air concept, so the 3-stage, you have it here as free air of 8,000 CFM. At that point, this is where having higher CFM comes into play, because you are taking in more air at the nozzle, more air at your breather holes to help continue to convey that material up the hose. So you then are relying on CFM. That's actual. If people could close their eyes and think about it, it's the materials, your hand, and the air is literally rushing past it, and that's what's picking it up. So if you have a giant rock, you need more CFM, whereas if you have a leaf, 2 or 3 CFM, and that leaf will disappear, right? So you have to take into consideration of what you're vacuuming to also, but what you're vacuuming directly correlates to how fast you're running your truck, in my opinion. If you're doing light, fluffy, airy material, low vacuum, even if you're 200 feet away, will work all day long. But if you're pulling that tough sludge, slurry, thick, peanut butter, hydro excavation material, you're going to need that thing spinning, because you need every last little bit of CFM rushing past that material to push it into the hose to then carry it down that length of hose to your truck. And it's the same with vertical pulls. We'll get into one of these pictures here in a second, because the one that I sent you that we'll take a look at, and I know through the powers of editing, we'll have it'll be up there. The depth of this manhole is right around 30 feet. Okay. So if you want to take a look at it real quick,
so So just so you know, and most of you guys that are just listening will describe these pictures like
Yes,
Jason
we
is.
will.
But this podcast, you can watch it and see what we're talking about on YouTube and on Spotify. So you can watch and see these pictures. But if you're just listening, we will use your imagination and try to be as descriptive as possible.
Yes, I sure will. So it's a sewer manhole. It's roughly 25, between 20 and 25 feet deep. It does have a 36-inch manhole lid on it. I'm only going through the 24, and there's a 36-inch sewer line flowing below there. So in that pipe, it's flowing at about half pipe. So if we do some quick math, that should be like, what, a foot and a half of water? So there's about a foot and a half, maybe somewhere in that range, about a foot to foot and a half of water in there. And you can see on my tubes, or you can see in the picture of the tubes, how many tubes I have up there and going down there. Then you can see the depth of the water at the bottom of the sewer manhole, okay? My fluidizer, if you take a look at the one where the tubes are outside of the hole, it's on top of that last tube there. There's that little 1 foot of pipe. You see that, John?
Yep.
Yeah, so there's that little 1 foot with the holes drilled in it, okay? And then we have tube all the way up, and then I got about a 7-foot nozzle on the bottom here that has my crown on it, because I have one of those nozzles where my crown is already like welded onto the bottom of the tube. Okay, yep. So it's not like there's not multiple clamps there. So I would put that down into the flow. I would start jetting, and as I'm bringing it back, I would turn on the vacuum. Because that fluidizer is there. Now, you want to get as close to the water as you can, but I've found it's actually not super critical unless you go too far. So if you're within, the top of the water line to maybe a couple feet, 3 or 4 feet, 5 feet, if you stay within that range, what you will hear, and what you talked about earlier about recovery, okay? So you'll hear the fan start to spool up, and you'll hear those holes whistling, and they're trying to do something. And then all of a sudden you hear, and it starts taking the water. And what that is the air is now being introduced as the water made it up to the air holes, and the air then pushes the water up the tube. So It does not matter how deep your manhole is and how deep that water is. To an extent, you can do it. And it works fantastically. For that picture, once John's got it up there, and for you listening, it is 25 feet. And those are the ones that everybody says the fan cannot do it. That is just simply not true. I actually had to be careful and adjust, because normally when you're jetting, especially bigger line, you're not going to be vacuuming the entire time. You turn your vacuum on. Some guys do it at 100 feet. Some guys do it at 75. I was typically like a 75-foot guy. I like to turn it on there. The problem I was having is the dang fan was loading the truck so fast that I actually filled up when I was still about 10 feet in the line. And I was like, dang it, this is, whoa. I actually can't turn it on until maybe 50 feet because I'm just going to fill up so fast.
Yeah. You have to play with that balance, right?
You do, you just gotta know. So in this setup, and for the people who are just listening, what you can do when you're cleaning large diameter is actually set up your drain hose off the back, get some cam lock hose, and run it to the front to where you could drain the liquid off in the tank while you're sending the hose back out. So my helper would go back there once I started sending the hose back out, open the valve, tip the tank, get all the water out, drain it back into the sewer line, because we were there all day. We're step cleaning this pipe, so we were going to be there for 4 to 6 hours. So we basically, what I call set up shop, and set it up to where we can consistently drain the liquid off. Because yes, every time that I brought it back, even though I was sucking up material, I was sucking up water too. It would fill my 11-yard debris tank in about 4 minutes. I timed it the other day on a storm drain vault, and I filled my 11 as soon as I heard it catch. I started the timer when it recovered. Took 4 minutes right. It was like 4 minutes and 1 second before my automatic fill protection kicked in and shut my vacuum off.
Yep. Yeah, and
I've never had that before. That's
yeah,
wild.
yeah,
That's super wild.
yeah. A lot of people, like, when I'm going and showing people this, like, take me to a pond. You want to see how fast this thing loads? We'll plunge it underwater, and you can get some that are under 2 minutes. Where if you're just bringing on constant water without actually doing anything, you're just plunging it under. But in this example, you go to a lift station that's 45-foot depth lift station. I was in one in South Georgia not that long ago. People really don't think of South Georgia having huge, deep lift stations. I probably went to one of the deeper ones that they had. Test this truck out and induce a little bit of air. Boom, that truck's going to fill up very fast.
Very fast. And what, so just so people understand, 11 yards, okay, a simple calculation, for every cubic yard that you have, that's roughly 203 gallons of space. So if you just take 11 times 203, should be a little over 2,200 gallons. I was essentially pumping then at over 500 gallons per minute into my tank. That's 20 feet down.
With air.
Yeah.
Not even just water, not even just liquid.
Yeah. And so the misconception of, definitely, because I was always told that. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, John. People told me, like, oh, that thing can't. You got to put it on top. Those VacconJohns, they're not going to do it. Yeah, it's not going to. It sucks, and it's not like the PD where you could just bury it. But then it's funny. I remember plenty of jobs when I was younger working at downstream services. They all their trucks had PDs, and we would do some of these deep pulls, and nobody wanted to introduce air. If anything, they're like, tape all the clamps and tape everything up, make it airtight. You could see the material at the bottom of the tube. It goes up and then it falls right back out. It goes and
it's getting up to that water
problem.
100%. People don't think about that.
Yeah.
But when we're talking inches of water column, that's in a science lab, right? That is okay. So you got one piece tube, no connections at all. Those clamps, doesn't matter if you're using adjustable clamps, band lock clamps, any clamp where you're going aluminum to aluminum with a clamp, it is helping you because it's
getting a little bit of air
there too.
Now, you don't want a super leak. You don't want a big old gap and all this kind of stuff. But if you hear that whistling by your tubes, that's good. It's not bad. Like I said, these trucks are air conveyance trucks. People need to stop thinking about them as a pure vacuum vehicle. They are not. They have...
Stop taping your clamps.
Yes, stop taping your clamps. Stop putting gaskets in them. Stop doing all of that crazy stuff. It does not help. The only time that helps is for a 27-inch vacuum blower when you need to kind of seal that up. But even then, once you pass that 30 feet, you're going to add air. So we're back to the air conveyance method.
100%. You're going to have to plunge it underneath the air and pure vacuum it within your range. And if you're outside of your range, you need air conveyance to help you make that pull. There's no other physical way for you to do it.
Yep. And so that was a huge eye opener for me. Yeah. That was next level eye opening because, when I grew up, when I was coming up through this stuff, I was always told, you don't want to add air and you don't want to do this. And all these older guys who thought I thought they were the cream of the crop and they knew all this. They were wrong. They were really, really wrong. And it's not a bad thing, but it's like, now I'm grateful that I have this knowledge of these experiences because now I know, and I can translate it to anything. Like if a company comes out or the city comes out with their truck and it has a PD on it and they're struggling, I could go, do you have an air vac? Or do you have an air gap? Do you have a fluidizer? Some people call them fluidizers. Some people call them air gaps. So do you have one of those? And they're like, what's that? And I go, well, that's the problem.
This episode is brought to you by VacconJohn. Since 1986, the mission of VacconJohn has been to support, design, and manufacture innovative vacuum and high-pressure water cleaning solutions that deliver superior performance in municipal, industrial, and utility markets worldwide through their global dealer network. Today, their family of products include combination machines, industrial vacuum loaders, jetters, and hydrovacs that are used in an array of diverse applications by companies in the construction, oil and gas, mining, safety, and environmental industries. These machines are equipped to handle the toughest of jobs in the harshest of conditions. No matter the industry, VacconJohn's world-class industrial vacuum trucks and trailers are guaranteed to save you time, money, and effort. To learn more or find your local dealer, visit VacconJohn online at www.vac-con.com.
I really want the listeners and the viewers to understand that everybody's truck is limited and everybody's truck has parameters, and you need to know them, and you need to know them through and through, because otherwise you're going to be sitting out there scratching your head, getting frustrated, which nobody likes. That doesn't conduce a safe work environment. That doesn't do anything. You need to take it upon yourself to understand what your truck can do, because when people go, oh, well, how did you do that? Why are you so good? And it's because I understand my equipment and I know what it can and cannot do. I don't have to guess.
Understanding your limitations will help you become a better operator. And because you have to
find an unmeasurable amount.
Yeah.
In an unmeasurable amount. You just know it. I don't care if you're still scared of jetting or you're scared of a chain flail or move, get all of that. It does not matter. If you know what your truck is the capacity, I can't tell you how many people go, oh, my truck holds like 3,000 gallons of water. And I go, no, it doesn't. I sometimes know competitors' trucks better than the operator who is using the competitor's truck.
Well, and that comes back to what you love doing. Just like we're so similar in the way of like being a vac truck nerd, sewer nerd all together, where you get to nerd out on a lot more stuff than I do because I'm really on the vac truck side. But you loving that portion of it.
I love the whole field.
Yeah.
All of it.
So when you go up to with somebody that treats it like a job, when you're treating it as a livelihood and a career,
as a passion,
there are going to be it's a passion where there are going to be situations where you pull up and somebody you're like, oh, that's not a 3,000 gallon truck. Right? It's one of those things.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things. But that's why, to the younger listeners out there, go ask your boss, your supervisor, your whoever, and ask them, hey, where's the manual for this thing? Where's the information that tells me what this is, how to use it? And I guarantee you'll be shocked at the things that you learn in this manual. There may be some things where you're like, well, that's a little overkill. I don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? I can fix that process a little bit myself. But on the whole grand scheme of it, the things that you will learn in there will probably blow your mind, because everybody gets a truck. There's the guy who goes, I know how to operate everything. I know, I was that guy for a little bit. And you just throw that manual right out the window and you just do exactly the way you've been doing it for years. And like I said, with the new VacconJohns, people who have the 1-stage, 2-stage, 3-stage, that truck is running a lot quieter and a lot, the RPM set is differently, whereas the older ones that are FEPTO mounted, it runs a lot faster and a lot louder. And so you couldn't step from a FEPTO truck into a new VacconJohn with, a transfer case drive on everything where it's set to 1250. You'd be sitting there pushing the button. Why is this not going up higher? Because you don't need it higher.
Right.
That's it. That's all you need. But I'm sure in your time, somebody's going to call you and say, hey, man, my truck won't go over 1250. What's up with that?
I drive there. Yeah. So like what you're talking about, like being set 1250, on our dual engine setup trucks, you have the capability of going with what we call a quiet drive. So you can get a dual engine truck where you can use classic controls, control the RPM by yourself, pick and choose which RPM you want to run the truck at, then stroke your hydrostatic pump on the vacuum side separately. But with the digital control setups like Jason's truck, with your truck, you have preset parameters that give you the power count that you need in stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 automatically.
Right. And so let me ask you, when you, on the new trucks, being as that's not something I've got to use yet, when you get to stage 3, does it go over the 1250, or is that all you guys need?
So it depends on if the truck is quiet drive or not. So you can set up the truck either way, with either operating system. But so
What would be the benefits of that?
the biggest benefit of running quiet drive is you get the same. So like my truck that's on the picture behind me, for those of you guys just listening, if you've seen it online, the Black Pearl, my all black demo truck. I did not put quiet drive on that truck.
Really?
And yeah, so I in third stage, it still goes through stage 1, 2, and 3 of vacuum, but my stage 3 is going to be at the 1750 RPM chassis mark. But if I did add quiet drive to that truck, like the Desert Storm truck that I highlighted on my social media platforms, that does have quiet drive. So in stage 1, it has 1250 RPM, stage 2, 1250 RPM, stage 3, 1250 RPMs. And that's just the type of blower motor we really put on it to where we can regulate the RPMs differently than if you were to use the standard where your RPMs are going to fluctuate up to a higher mark. The big thing with quiet drive is not just noise, but it's also diesel fuel consumption.
Right.
Obviously, running at the lower RPM, you're going to get more fuel economy out of it.
Now, does it give you less performance with quiet drive? Does it take down anything? So
No,
then why would you not want the quieter
The
feature?
only reason not to want to go with quiet drive would be price point. So it does cost more to get, it's an upgrade. So I have to walk a fine line, so to say, with my demo truck, right? I want to drive around in a Cadillac, and I want to show the bells and whistles that I think give VacconJohn an edge, but I also want to sell that truck to someone that is going to get good use of it at the end. So I play that when I build my trucks up. I play that game of like, all right, on this truck, I'm going to sell X, Y, and Z. And then the next truck I build, I might build it and sell A, B, C. But the person buying that truck might like the first one better than the second one. So I'm just trying to appeal to the price point and the functionality on each demo that I build for the most part.
So on the Black Pearl, though, the vacuum system is off of the transfer case, correct? It's not FEPTO? That's because it has a Pro Reel?
Yes.
So in my experience, and unfortunately what I hear, the biggest complaint, if you will, of a VacconJohn is the FEPTO. And that is especially if you have hydraulics hooked up to it, there's a gnarly wobble that happens in there, and so you can't run it at certain RPMs. Like my truck, I don't have that issue, but it still tells me don't run it less than 1500. And, running it at the higher RPMs, very noise pollution, very loud. Like you said, the diesel drink goes down. So I was under the assumption that the transfer case is kind of how you guys have figured out how to get a more even power flow, because instead of just running it off of the front drive shaft that just has to spin, you're now using the gears of the transmission. And for everybody out there, that is why these trucks are ultimately built that way with a split shaft or a transfer case, is so you can use the gears of the transmission so you can run the truck at a lower speed. That's why it shifts into gear on your shifters. Yeah,
and we still have trucks that we run with FEPTO.
Yeah, of course. And that's a safety thing, because you can run the truck in neutral. There are people who love that. And I understand that. I like that aspect of it. I've just progressed as an operator where I'm like you said, I want the Cadillac now. I want to be able to run it quiet.
Without getting into like proprietary information.
Yeah, of course.
So there was issues with a select amount of trucks that had a certain drive system FEPTO. That there were some issues that we recalled.
Right.
But there's still benefits of running trucks FEPTO for sure, especially so if you got a single engine truck and you were running the vacuum hydrostatically off the transfer case, having a FEPTO water hydrostat is super beneficial.
That was the truck at the last company. They were ex-Caltrans trucks, and that's how they built them. So the FEPTO ran the water, and then the transfer case ran the blower, which was great.
Super popular way to run the system, because especially when you get up in really cold climates in the Northeast, the Midwest, Canada, that's really, really easy winter recirculation because you got to
the
drive line. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Really, really cut and dry, simplistic winter recirculation setup. And there's other benefits too, but a lot of it I don't like to tell people because, like, especially with like Fepto issues being resolved, like we don't have those issues anymore. And offline, I can tell you some of the things that changed with it. But
so for me, I just want everybody to know too. I found this out. The drive line that finally did give out on me, that was the original one. Okay, so it lasted for 20 to 10 something years. Okay, so it's not like it's been happening to me all the time. I was able to find out that was the original drive line. So if I get 10 years out of a drive line, what are 10 plus years? I mean, come on, guys. What are we crying over? You know what I mean? So I wanted to touch on that because that is what people try to naysay against it. And I go, but everything breaks.
Yep. And there's other companies that use Fepto hydrostats on trucks too.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I see the benefit of having the truck in neutral because that's how my truck operates. I put it in neutral. I pull the parking brake. I get out. There's no in-cab sequence. There's none of that. I know we've really simplified the in-cab stuff and even changed it to the front and all this cool stuff, but there is none of that for me. So if that's something that you're looking for in a truck is something simple where the operator can show up, pull. I mean, for me, I would want to keep this truck forever as my learning truck, as the guy that I put the new guy into this truck. So that way he can just focus on jetting and vacuuming and getting good at that. Then some of the other fancier Cadillac things that I want, because being an experienced operator, I should get the Cadillac, and the new guy should get the feeder truck.
Make your life easier, and then train the other guys to where once they're ready to make that step, you've got that other truck for them. Yeah, which is a great thing, a great way of going through like a standard operating procedure of your company going through that portion of it is awesome.
Yeah, because people need to understand that that's what's so great about VacCon is that I could order a truck as basic can be and make it so that way the newest of newest operators can get on there, get comfortable, build the experience, build the confidence in the equipment, and then step them up to something that's a little bit more Cadillac. Because essentially what happens, people go, well, why do I need to make that jump? Production, efficiency. Once you're good enough and you can start doing this stuff essentially with your eyes closed, then let me get you the truck that has the more bells and whistles that you'll know to make you more productive, more efficient, and ultimately happier in your job.
Yep. Yeah, because there's levels to it. Like, if you're coming in at the bottom level, you're not going to be able to take those extra features and become more productive with those extra features. You really need to learn through the basics to where those extra features of making you more productive, now that you've got the baseline down, then you can take that next step, which is a great way to think of it. So let's switch gears. Let's go into now what we want to talk about on the water side, if that's cool.
No, that's great. I mean, the family, the biggest takeaway from there, guys, is just go try it out, go throw an air gap on, go cut some holes in your hose, play with it. It's not a perfect science. You're going to have to tape, you're going to have to add, you're going to have to subtract, you're going to have to do all kinds of stuff. So just play with it. It's just a vacuum. It's nothing scary. It's just sucking up material. Figure out what works and what doesn't. Every truck's going to be a little bit different too.
Yep. Yeah, there's a little bit of an art that goes into it for sure.
For sure.
So we mentioned at the beginning that you are running a 80 gallon per minute system, but you are utilizing a variable flow to where you run mostly 60 gallon per minute nozzles. You also have a 50 gallon per minute nozzle. I know you wanted to talk about volume versus pressure quite a bit, cleaning versus flooding, friction loss a little bit. Let's go down that road.
So jetting seems like a very complicated and complex thing, but touching on some of the things that we learned in the earlier, if you have the ability to get in a camera van and watch that nozzle in action, that's the first starting point. You need to see what that thing's doing. Okay, then once you get that, then you can start adding in some of these fancy little things here. So friction loss is a big one. Depending on what size hose you're running, what flow you're running, and what nozzle you have on there will determine how much pressure you actually get at the nozzle. The common misconception is whatever's on the gauge, that's what I'm getting at the nozzle. No.
Oh.
Not even close. Not even remotely close on the higher flows. I mean, the friction loss starts jumping up crazy. So depending on where you are, right now for me, for my setup, because that's the one I can talk about the most, I have 60 at 3. So that means, and what a lot of people don't understand either, is you're never actually getting that full 60 gallons per minute either. You're getting a little bit less, maybe like 55, 57. Okay, so you got to adjust that as well. And it's not because of the water pump, it's because of friction. Yep. And you're just losing that amount of water over the stretch of hose. So I have 600 feet of 1-inch hose on there. I'm losing roughly about a pound, maybe between 0.75 and a pound of pressure per foot of hose. So if I have 600 feet of hose, that means I'm losing roughly 450 to 600 psi at the nozzle. So if I'm running 3,000 at the gauge, then at the nozzle, I'm at, 25, 26, 23, 22, somewhere in 21 even, somewhere in that range, okay?
Yep.
That is actually the pressure you need to be concerned about. So whatever the gauge says, you need to start doing math in your head. Because I was taught a phrase, it's pressure cut, flow moves. Okay? So if you're trying to clean out roots, if you're trying to clean out grease, scale, you need to be high pressure and lower flow. Now, something that I have learned that is expanded in a little bit, flow directly correlates to force and how much actual force, whereas if you have a 5-pound weight or a 10-pound weight, when you drop both of those, which is going to leave a bigger indent in the ground, right? So right. You just like in vacuum, you need both here too. So if you have a pipe that's horribly tuberculated with, calcium buildup or this or whatever it is, and you have a lot of it, you're going to need the pressure to get it off the wall, but then you're going to need some of that flow to move it away from your head as well. Because the biggest killer that people don't ever take into consideration is when your nozzle is what I call buried. And it's either buried in water or buried in material. If it's buried and it doesn't have the force to move some of the material away from the head to keep cleaning, it's just going to get stuck. I have gotten plenty of hoses stuck, and I know what happens when you get a hose stuck. And a lot of the times it's just solely you didn't have enough water flow to keep that material kind of moving off of your hose, and you build up this giant lug of material right behind your head. And then that all sits on your leader hose, and then you're stuck.
Yep.
So an 8-inch pipe, it's that's very small. People think that's large, or maybe they don't. I don't know. Plumbers are going to be like, oh yeah, I never see 8-inch, and then us, municipal guys are like, 8 inches the every day, right?
Right.
Like I said earlier, about 57 gallons of water can be held in a 10-inch or in an 8-inch pipe that's 10 feet long. So if I'm pumping at 60 plus gallons per minute, I could fill that piece of pipe in a minute or less. I don't need that. I can actually step down the flow to what I need to get the job done. And what I do is I wrote this down. I follow a little golden rule here when it comes to flow. So for every inch of diameter of pipe you have, it directly correlates to this math problem. So if you have light material, you take the diameter and you multiply it by 1. That's how much GPM you should be running. If you have medium material, denser, maybe some grit, sand, a lot of it, 1.5 times the diameter. And then for heavy material, bigger, you got storm drain and there's rocks and DG and all this stuff in there, multiply it by times 2. So if we follow this math here, if I have light material, essentially 8 gallons per minute is all I need to clean an 8-inch pipe.
Yep.
So being anything higher than that is overkill. And I know this because when I was a plumber, there were plenty of times where I had to go jet an 8-inch line or a 12-inch line. And I had an 18 gallon per minute, 4,000 PSI water pump on my jetter trailer. That thing cleaned that thing out like nobody's business. I was still one pass. But yet I was told I need 60 and 80 at all times.
Right.
So right away, just being a plumber was enough for me to learn that everything I learned about jetting on the bigger side was completely wrong. Like
and
100%.
It goes back to like how important pressure is for actually breaking up the material, getting it loose, and the flow is really carrying that material to where your truck is.
Right.
And you supplied, we were talking friction loss and talking about the pressure at the nozzle versus the pressure that's being read at the truck. We can't measure the pressure at the nozzle because what are you going to do? Put a computer down at the end of that nozzle and run wiring all the way back through your router hose, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that I just want to touch on really quick that is extremely misleading in the industry and what a lot of competitors use and lean on is a lot of people sell 80 gallon per minute at 2,500 PSI trucks to municipalities and contractors that are typically cleaning 8-inch to 12-inch pipe. It is completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
If you are cleaning 60-inch and 48-inch storm pipe all the time, it makes 50, a lot more
60% full.
Yeah, you want flow at that point to carry that material. With this 8 to 12-inch setup, if you're doing 99% of your work with sanitary pipes, 8 to 12-inch, I have a video with what I call the bucket video where I'm explaining water usage, right? And a lot of people try to down that video by saying, friction loss in 3/4-inch hose. I just want to touch on this really quick. If I'm looking at a graph, we'll supply graphs on the screen for people that are watching.
I sent you some that are real good for this.
Yeah, so let's say that both of these trucks have 600 foot of hose on them. And one truck is a 50 gallon per minute at 3,000 PSI water system. One truck is an 80 gallon per minute at 2,500 PSI water system. The 50 gallon per minute truck has 3/4-inch inside diameter router hose. The 80 gallon per minute truck has 1-inch router hose inside diameter. What our competitors and what a lot of people in the field do is they really lean on the pressure loss per foot, because in a 3/4-inch hose, your friction loss per foot is much greater. It's about 2.7 PSI per foot lost on a 50 gallon per minute, 3,000. And on that 80 gallon per minute at 2,500 PSI, that loss is about 1.6 PSI per foot. So what these people are doing is they're saying, man, 1.6 PSI lost per foot compared to 2.7, you need this 80 gallon per minute system. You're losing less per foot pressure. Well, here's the secret that they're hiding from you. When you have that 600 foot at the end, at the nozzle, you're at 1,540 PSI. With that 50 gallon per minute nozzle, you're at 1,380 PSI, which is a difference of about 160 PSI. You are not going to notice that 160 PSI. The kicker here is the 50 gallon per minute system is running 3,000 PSI. That 80 gallon per minute is running 2,500 PSI. So your end result is very different. Here's where it changes. You got a 1,000 gallon truck, 50 gallons per minute, you got 20 minutes of runtime. 80 gallons per minute, you got 12 and a half minutes of runtime. Let's say I don't have 1,000 gallons on my truck. I got 1,500 gallons on my truck. 50 gallons per minute, you're running for 30 minutes. 80 gallons per minute, you're running for 18.75 minutes. There's a big difference here. Pressure loss per foot is not important between those two because it's a difference of 160 PSI. So just throwing that out, I know it's a lot of numbers, but it's something that when some sales guy comes and they're going against me and they bring this up, my hands start rubbing together. I'm like, oh, here we go. We want to get technical. We're going to get technical, right? Because there is a reason back in the day, 3/4-inch was extremely popular. They were spending more time over top of that manhole. I know if I had that extra 12 minutes or so over top of it, I'm going to make it a lot more clean,
Oh, no, for sure. Or just get more footage in general. And, I think the other reason why a lot of these guys try to sell the 80 is because they go, so San Diego, super hilly. I mean, we got some lines that are damn near vertical, okay? And they go, oh, well, my 80 will climb that hill, no problem. And I go, that's cool. You're right. It will. If I threw a 60 on there on the 1-inch hose, it's not going to climb the hill. I get that because the hose is bigger and it weighs more. So what happens when I put a 50 on a 3/4 inch hose? That thing becomes a missile, okay?
Flying.
And it flies up the hill way faster than the 80. And like you said, I'm using less water to do it.
And a lot of the hill climbing thing, which people, I know you pay attention to, but a lot of people, they'll put an extremely heavy nozzle on the end of it and try to climb it. I'm like, get the lightest. So I actually sometimes on my certain demo trucks, if I'm going and knowing I'm demoing in a very hilly or mountainous area, I'm bringing technically a hill climbing nozzle, like an aluminum nozzle, a very lightweight nozzle that builds that pressure up and doesn't have all that weight on it. The nozzle is really going to help you climb those hills.
And the other way to combat hill climb, along with a lighter nozzle, is nozzle jet degree. Okay.
Yep.
So if you're trying to climb a hill and you have a 30-degree jet, meaning that from the center line of the nozzle, the water is exiting at a 30-degree angle and impacting the walls of the pipe, that's great for cleaning the walls of the pipe. But if I put on a 10 or 5 or even ends out there, shout out ends, nozzles, they have a 0 degree. Okay. I don't care what flow you're running through that thing, 50, 80, 100, a million. It does not matter. That thing will pull every lick of hose you have and still want to pull. And that's because the water is shooting straight back. It is essentially a rocket at that point.
It is a rocket, that's right.
Yeah. And it will fly up any line. So what you can do, Vactor operators out there, truck operators out there that are using these things, send the nozzle up with this one to climb the hill, have your helper go up there, grab the nozzle, pull it out, change out to your cleaning one, and then bring it back.
One way to do it right there.
Right. Again, why does my truck always have to be able to do everything? Why is it that I can't just exert a little bit of energy, a little bit of effort, and go do something to make my truck? Like, why do I have to buy the biggest, baddest thing on the market when I can just use this one more effectively?
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So friction loss, huge thing. And like I said, apply this math to your flow. If you guys are out there just running 8-inch pipe that has a little bit of grit, maybe some toilet paper and grease, step your truck down. I mean, I've personally, and I will find this photo for you, John, and I'll send it over to you to hopefully maybe get it in there. I had 1/2-inch jetter hose plugged in, and I know I sent you one. I even plugged in 1/4-inch jetter hose. For people who don't know, 1/4-inch jetter hose is what plumbers use to clean out little traps, like P-traps and stuff. I had a job where the pipe in these sub-drains for this storm drain vault, they were only 1 inch in diameter. So I needed something really tiny. Well, because my truck goes from 0 to 80, I just kept the multi-flow valve all the way open, and I actually had to bleed off even more. So I started using the pump control valve and just opening it slowly until my pressure dropped down to the 3,000 where I wanted it. And I had 1-inch hose to 1/4-inch hose. I had a 1-inch fitting going to a 1/4-inch fitting. I sent that to the local reps out here, MME, and good buddy of mine, Jake Dool. Shout out Jake. He's the San Diego area rep for MME. He was like, what is that? And I go, that's 1/4-inch hose. And he goes, whoa, wow, okay, like that's, and then I sent him a picture when I put 1/2-inch hose on there. So if you guys are just running 8 to 12-inch pipe, honestly, you don't even, 3/4 even a little much. Not to say that it's too much, but it's you could go even lower. You could put 1/2-inch jetter hose on there, run at 15, 20 gallons a minute, and you want to talk about runtime. Let's say you have 1,500, let's say you have the regular 1,300 gallons of water on there, okay? And you're running at 20 gallons per minute on your pump. That is 65 minutes of runtime. A whole freaking hour.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's actually really popular. Like the trailers that you were talking about, the jetter trailers you're talking about running. We have our VacconJohn VJ 750 gallons of water. You can set it up with 18 gallon per minute, 4,000 PSI, 1/2-inch hose.
Yeah.
Huge run
Yeah.
times. And
Right.
if you're doing those sanitary lines, 8 to 12 inches, I mean, you're set.
Yeah.
You're set.
And here's the other thing too. You can still clean a bigger pipe with that. Okay.
Yep.
The biggest pipe I ever cleaned with an 18 at 4,000 PSI setup was an 18-inch pipe. I had a sweet little bottom cleaner for it. I had a warthog that I could put on some skids. So I chewed out all the roots. Then I put the bottom cleaner on. Yeah, it took me like, some extra passes. Yeah, it takes a little longer and work it out. But you can still do it.
Right. You don't have to say, I have to buy another piece of equipment to actually do this job. It's just going to take a little bit more time.
Yeah.
And you will do it just as effectively as that piece of equipment that you want to buy. It just takes time. That's it. But
I cleaned a 36-inch pipe, had about 10 to 15%, no, maybe closer to 20% of material. The whole distance, it was about 150 feet. I cleaned this 36-inch pipe with a 50 GPM head, bottom cleaner, and it took me like an hour and a half, maybe, 2 loads of water. But everybody would have said, no, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. Lies. That's a lie. I did it with 3/4 inch hose, and I did it with the correct nozzle because it's a combination of everything. It's flow, it's PSI, it's correct hose size, and it's correct nozzle choice. It's not just a one side. See, that's what everybody wants is this, I just want to press a lever.
Mm-hmm.
No. If you want to be effective, if you want to be efficient, if you want to actually clean pipe, not flood pipe, you have to do it this way. You have to know what you're cleaning, what you need, what head you're going to use, where's your water, how much material is in there, and you have to figure out the correct way through all of it. It's like a formula. You have to plug in all the variables, and then it's going to spit out how you need to clean that thing. It's not just that nozzle will do everything, or this flow will do everything.
There's not a one-size-fits-all thing. It's just like anything else, really. I mean, you can treat something like a one-size-fits-all, but you are going to sacrifice performance and productivity.
Oh, for sure, 100%. And so, like I said, I like to do math with it because being that I'm a production guy, this is how we figure out, and this isn't even proprietary. This is just simple, basic math, okay? So if my truck holds, let's say I get it up to the 1,300 gallons per minute, and I run something like a Bulldog, an Ends Bulldog nozzle, which I love, or let's say a Warthog switcher, where you could switch between 2 different flow patterns or whatever, right? So for general cleaning, if I'm running at roughly 45 gallons per minute, so that's 28 minutes of runtime, I then multiply that by seconds, so that's 1,733 seconds of runtime. I then divide that by how long I know it takes to do a 300-foot piece of pipe. So it takes about 45 seconds to send your nozzle up 300 feet of pipe, okay, roughly, give or take who's experienced and who's doing it. But for me, I've timed myself. It's about 45 seconds. So it takes me 345 seconds to clean a whole 300-foot line because I'm pulling the hose back at a foot a second. So if I take that and I divide it by the 345, that means I can get 5 lines in with 1 tank of water. So if we multiply the 5 times 300, that's 1,500 feet. So I'm getting 1,500 feet of cleaning per tank of water. And if I could fill up 4 times a day, that's 6,000 feet. That's how I get that number. Yeah, I'm just doing the math. I'm not doing anything extreme here. I'm just taking what I know and adding some math to it. And that's how I'm able to actually be as productive as I am.
100%. Because you're doing that legwork before you go up and start turning that water on. You've done this research on the backside to make it to where you understand the limitations of your equipment, like we talked about before. Right. Where if you guide and plan your job based on the equipment you're running, just like you did with the math there, you can be so much more productive and make more money at the end of the day. It's really the goal.
And for the city people who aren't necessarily in the business of making money, they're in the business of maintenance and maintaining, you can get more done. I can't tell you how many guys, they're like, oh gosh, we're just so behind. I can only get 2,000 feet a day and I'm doing all this running around and this and that. This is the math right here. Even the city should take the municipality should take some of this advice and use it on their equipment. They will burn their stuff out less. They'll burn their guys out less. They'll use less water, which of course everybody loves. Everybody loves saving water, and it'll keep. And you'll get a better product ultimately, because like you just said, the pressure that you're cleaning at is higher. So I don't know how many times I've cameraed a line and there's still streaks. People don't know, but when you jet, you'll see these streaks in the line because it's where the nozzle was hitting, where the insert where the water is actually hitting. That part of the pipe is clean, but then there'll be some dirt and then clean and then dirt. Right. So if you use a nozzle that spins and does reverse flow, or and flow out the back like the Bulldog. That's why I love that one the most. The higher pressure is what actually will take a clay pipe and turn it into brand new again. I have jetted so many pipe where the guy comes up and he goes, "Wait, where's the flow line?" And I go, "Oh, it should be right here." And he goes, "But all the little scum is gone. Like the scum line, the grease line, that line that's at the bottom that always lets you know where the flow is running, that's gone."
Yep.
And it looks brand new.
Yeah, you just went through and pressure washed the inside of that pipe.
Exactly.
With pressure.
With
not
real
with
pressure.
flow.
Because what happens is a lot of guys, they have these 60 or 80 GPM trucks. They have shallow lines. They're worried about burping toilets. They're worried about blowing up toilets, making a mess in people's homes. So they turn the pressure down. And we just talked about how you're only getting so much at the nozzle. So if you're turning the truck down to 57, or 500, 750, 1,000 PSI, you're getting 1,000 PSI or less at the nozzle. I mean, if some guys I've seen, they turn it all the way down to 500 because they don't want to blow up the toilet. I'm like, ultimately at the end of that nozzle, it's a garden hose. It's worth of pressure coming out. 60, 100 pounds, 200 pounds, maybe. That is not enough to scour. We are cleaning pipe. We are not flushing pipe.
Yep. That nozzle at the end of the hose, I tell people, the truck is creating flow. The nozzle's creating pressure. The nozzle is the thumb over the end of the garden hose, which makes all this happen. The truck is only going to be good as the nozzle you put on the tip of that router hose. Yeah. In reality.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what water pump you have behind it or any of this other nonsense. It only matters.
I will say, smooth, continuous flow and pressure through that nozzle that's designed for that flow and pressure is going to clean better than non-continuous or pulsating water, because think about, I always tell people this, think about the spinning nozzles like a Bulldog. If your Bulldog has gotten up in age and maybe it's not spinning as fast or as smoothly as it was towards the beginning, to where maybe you need 1,500 PSI to start the spin. Well, I want to feed it at 1,500 PSI, but instead of spin, drop down to 1,300 PSI, drop up or pick up to 1,500, and now that spin is spinning, slowing down, spinning, slowing down.
Right.
That's where we love the smooth, continuous flow and pressure there.
Yeah, absolutely, and I would definitely agree to that, because I've used the single piston water pump, which I know you guys put on your recycler trucks. So I'm not saying they don't have their purpose. But that's definitely something that I love particularly about the pump.
Yeah, and the only reason
pump is better.
Yeah, triplex pump is way better for sewer and storm cleaning and hydro excavation. The only reason in reality, Jason, we put that single piston pump on our recycler is because that pump that we use is designed to push the dirtiest possible water. So for our listeners, the recycler is vacuuming up the gray water that you are using in the pipe, bringing it into the debris tank, taking that dirty water, filtering it down, not too much, because if you filter it too much, too fine, it'll clog. So we just bring it down to that 200 to 500 micron level, and then send it back out with a pump that can actually pump dirty water and send it back out. Your nozzle inserts wear out faster. I'd rather wear out nozzle inserts than wear out a water pump.
For sure. And so that is one thing, because the other thing that people don't understand with the single piston style is the kick is in the handgun too. So just the other night we were having to use the city truck. It was a competitor's truck with the kick, and he didn't know that it was going to kick, and it actually kind of got out of his hand for a minute, and he went and like, sprayed up into the sky because he wasn't expecting that. He's been using my truck, which is smooth and consistent all the time. So, there's that downside to it too, where that kick is just, So, but, getting back to the nozzles, it's like, it just takes a little bit of thought before you do something, and knowing what you have, like we've been saying, to do this, because the last thing that I really want to touch on the nozzles, and feel free to add to this, is the degrees. So people don't understand degrees. So when it comes to nozzles, if they say it's a 10 degree or a 15 or a 30, that's the angle that the water is coming out. So if my hand, and for the people who are listening, my hand's flat, if you hold that flat and then you take a line coming off of it, you measure that degree that it's coming out of the nozzle, and that's the degrees of the nozzle.
The angle.
The angle of attack for the water. So 5 degrees is going to be more straight back. Then you got a 10 and a 15 all the way up to 30, some 45, some hard 90, where it comes out of the nozzle sideways just to get the walls nice and pretty and clean, right? So if you're trying to move a lot of material, a lower angle attack a nozzle like a 5 or a 10 will be better for you, because it'll actually eject the nozzle or the material back behind the nozzle, whereas something that's a 30 or a 45, that's going to be for cleaning the walls, but it's not going to move the material down the line like you want it to. So you highlighted a nozzle that I think is really good, and that's multiple angles. The grenade bomb from Ends, it's got like 10 and 30s on it. That's great, because you've got the ejection part of it, and you got the wall part. So if you're doing storm drain and a lot of that, that's probably like, storm drain from 10 inch to like 18 inch, man, that's the nozzle right there. And that's what I'm saying is you'll find a nozzle that'll do a lot of pipe for you, but then you'll have to switch when you go to something else. You just have to.
And when you're referring to those lower degree nozzle angles, not only does it help with ejection, it also helps with that thrust.
Yes,
so it's really got
getting
double
up that
functions
last.
to it. So it's got that. That's why it's a great maintenance nozzle and universal nozzle for those maintenance runs. That's why I love the grenade for that stuff.
The other thing that people don't know too is that angle plays into effect for the whole air movement portion of jetting. So what people need to understand is in a pipe, there's high pressure behind your head and low pressure in front of your head. The low pressure will rush to the high pressure, essentially creating a vacuum. So when you have nozzles that are straight back, they're going to develop the most, so your 0s, 5s, and 10s, they're going to develop heavy air movement through the line. That is what essentially sucks the water out of the traps in people's toilets and their pee traps and their showers and stuff like that. That's what actually sucks that water down. And then as you pass their lateral, the high pressure then sends the burp back up. And that's how people's toilets burp. And that's how toilet unsettling happens. Is just physics. So to avoid some of that, a lot of nozzles, like the Ends makes a different bulldog than their regular one that they call their anti-blast. And what they did is they set the nozzles in the rear to 30. So it's more of a cone to kind of help slow that air from coming through the nozzle. Whereas their regular ones, I think they're set to 10 degree because we want that force. We want to move, we want to move water. We want to get through the line, right? So again, you could have two of the same nozzles. You could have a bulldog, a regular Ends bulldog, and an anti-blast. And you're going to be using those for different things. You're going to be using this one when you need the power, and you're going to be using this one when you need to feather it. And so look at that. You have two of the same nozzles for totally different functions.
And they look so similar.
They're the same freaking thing.
They just changed the angle. Now, another thing that a lot, you'd be so surprised through my travels. Another thing that people don't pay as much attention to as I wish they did was when you're opening the upstream manhole. Because you think about that air moving through, it has to take air from somewhere. So if you don't open the upstream manhole, it's going to take air from the next line down, the lateral,
The
next
laterals,
line
the
down
vents
after
from the
that.
house. If you go stick your hand over the vent on the top of the house when you're jetting, you'll feel the suction.
Yeah.
You'll feel it.
So yeah, so when you open that upstream manhole, it's almost like you are deciding where you want a majority of that air to come from.
Right.
You want it to come from the surface. You want it to come from the road.
And
That's a great way to do it,
for the
too.
guys listening, for the people listening who, guys and gals out there listening to this, and you have shallow sewer lines that you're working on, please, please, please send your helper up to that manhole.
Oh, yeah.
And I promise, no matter, as long as you stay 60 GPM or below in that low shallow line, that low 8-inch or 6-inch line that's shallow, you will not blow up toilets, because you now have at least a 24-inch vent hole to suck all that air in.
Yep. And you think the shallower you are, the less length there is to those toilets.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Less length. And the older areas that you're at too, you have to remember the vents might be clogged. The people's vents in their homes, they could be clogged with material. As a plumber, I saw that a bunch. So once I saw that, I then knew too, oh man, venting at a manhole is so important in shallow situations. Now, what's shallow? I personally say anything less than about 8 feet is shallow. And some people might be like, oh, whoa, no, about 8 feet. Because like you just mentioned about the length of lateral going up, 8 feet or deeper, you're going to have a really long lateral. Anything up, they could be 50 feet, 20 feet, and it just plugs right into that thing. You know?
And if you're cleaning in the right direction, the depth is getting shallower as you send that nozzle farther down the line too. To a small extent in most cases, but still.
Yeah. So, airflow is huge, and people don't, and it's a simple thing to teach yourself, because if you're the operator, if you have the opportunity, let's say the manholes are really close or whatever, walk away from the truck really fast, go up to that upstream manhole, and you'll feel the air. And when you lift it up, it's all, the lid is sucking down. You have to give it a little extra force to get it off. So imagine what that's doing inside the pipe.
Yep. Yeah.
That's the only thing that creates backed up toilets. I'm telling you. Now that's it. It's too high a flow and not enough air movement through that line to keep the water in the main and not going to the laterals. Speed of reel plays into it a little bit. If you're moving too fast, you'll start cupping the water behind your head, pressurizing
and
it.
a lot of it too is the change of speed too.
Right.
Going out really fast and then bringing it back really
slow. Yeah. So when you go out fast too, what you have to remember is when you're flying by the laterals and the shallow ones, it was low pressure, and then all of a sudden high pressure. You will create a little air pocket boom, a little sonic boom that will go up that lateral. That's how people's toilets go bloop, bloop, and all the water comes out. So if you're in shallow lines, go up slow too. Let that nozzle travel up that line slowly so everything can equal out slowly. And then the other trick too is when you get to the upstream manhole, take a pause. Turn the water off. Let that pipe drain down for 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Just count in your head. I don't know. Watch the birds, do something. But then turn that water pump back on. And after that water has drained down, not only are you going to not blow up toilets, but you're going to get a better clean, because it touches on what I talked about earlier about burying your nozzle. If you start pulling it back and there's all this water, the same concept of shooting a bullet into water, it's the same thing with water going through water. The second that nozzle or the water leaves that nozzle, if it's underwater, it loses half of its force immediately. Yep. So having a nice open pipe is the best way to clean.
Much better clean.
Much better cleaning. Now, when you're doing large diameter sewer, you don't really have a choice. But at that point, you're kind of using flow and the water in the pipe to help you, and so it's a little different. But when you're in small pipe, being buried in water you're not going to clean. So if there's sags in the line, you need to know that, because in those sections, you're not going to clean as effective as you did, and you may end up leaving material there in a sag. I can't tell you how many times I thought I got it. We camera through, we get to the sag, and there's still a little bit of dirt in there. Like, God dang it. Shoot, I guess I really just have to sit here and just let it get through it,
Yep.
But
well, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say the biggest thing for jetting is, like we touched on, is knowing what you're doing, and then being able to close your eyes and think about it. You have to gain that skill. If you want to be a good operator, you need to be able to close your eyes and think about exactly what that jetter's doing in there and what it's doing with the air and everything. That's what takes you from being an operator to a great operator.
100% agree. 100%. And there are so, through our conversation thus far today, there are so many huge tips to take your operation, take your production, take your overall company or municipality. If you're listening, there's so many tips throughout this conversation that can really change the way that you're working with your jetter or combo truck altogether. And
work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
That's it. And if you have the chance, go play with your equipment. Everybody has a yard. Everybody has somewhere where they keep their truck. What's wrong with, like you said, setting up a nozzle tube and on a Friday you guys all get together and you watch the nozzles and you play with them. You turn the pressure down, turn it up, use a different one. Same thing with the vacuum. Hey, let's just set out 100 foot of flex hose and let's start cutting some holes in it and see what's going to work, what's not going to work, and is this going to work? Play with your equipment. It's your baby. You spent this much money on it. Freaking know it inside out and backwards, and she will love you just as much as you love her.
Yeah. So that's a great segment there on the water side, Jason. Before we move on or before we wrap up, do you have any other stuff that you really have on your notes on your side that you'd want to cover?
Not really, man. We've done pretty well here. I feel like we're getting the information out there because the biggest stressor is I guarantee you, if you're listening to this, if you're watching it, if you go try just one thing, it's going to open up Pandora's box for you, because you're going to be like, oh shoot, this was right. Oh yeah, this is working great. Well, what happens if I do this? Or, hey guys, that one wet well we always struggle with? What if we did this instead? And then you guys go do it, and you knock it out in 2 hours instead of 8.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on what your modus of operandi is, it might just be a nice lunch day.
Right. Right.
You're like, hey, I guess we're going to lunch early today, boys. Let's go. Yeah. So, or for the people who are grinders like myself, well, guess what? I'm going to go get another station in.
Yep.
I'm going to go do something else now. I'm going to go get more in. When they say, oh, this company submitted a bid, they said they could only do 1 station a day. Well, I can do 4. You know what I mean? And that's ultimately the thing, without putting myself at a lesser competitive edge, from operator to operator. I don't like seeing guys struggle. I don't like people seeing, you think about some of the best excavator operators out there, and they can knock a cigarette out of your mouth. You know what I mean? With their bucket. Yeah. It's an extension of their fingers. My back truck is an extension of me.
Yep. No, that's awesome, man. Well, if that's the case, I think we're pretty good. We're set. So I can't thank you enough for coming on, Jason. I think, like I mentioned, we're both kind of back truck nerds, sewer nerds. And we could literally talk for hours and hours. And I feel like we've been talking for like 45 minutes, but we've been talking over 2 hours. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I've been looking up at the counter on the screen here, and I was like, oh, shoot, wow, we are.
It's crazy how fast
we're going to lose some people who enjoy short duration content. We're going to
but you know what? My thought on that, man, is you break it up, you listen to this how you want, but there's too much information to put it in small. It's too much. We got to go big. But as a thank you to you, so now on VacconJohn Unplugged, the new thing that I'm doing, we actually just started, and I've been asking for this for years, and it's going to be awesome, but we have VacconGear.com. So you sign on to VacconGear.com. I'm giving you a gift card promo code after the show. Where you can go on and shop for what you want. That way I don't, if I give you a shirt and you say, it's too big or whatnot, you can pick and choose what you want. There's hats, Yeti cups, shirts.
Got sweatshirts?
Yeah, got a Nike
yeah.
hoodie on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking
So,
for.
yeah, man. So I'm gonna get you that promo code again. I can't thank you enough for coming on, and I'm sure with the wealth of knowledge that you are, Jason, this ain't gonna be the last time we sit down and talk on the podcast. So,
Oh, I hope not, especially because my company is in its infancy, but as I continue to grow, contractors always get stuck with the best jobs out here, the crazy ones, the gnarly ones. So when I get some more, I would love, more photos and stuff. I would love to send them your way. And even if we don't do a direct talk, but you get them on the social, that's all I want to show is just get people to understand, yes, this truck can do it. You just got to know what you're doing.
yep.
You spent good money. The money you spent was good, I promise.
Right. Yeah. Heck yeah, man. Well, no, we'll definitely do it again. But again, thank you. And it is the weekend, so now we got some football to watch, or at least that's my plan for the next couple of days.
I think I got some hockey. I'm a hockey guy, but yeah,
oh, yeah?
there's stuff to watch for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, man, for being on the show, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, thanks, Sean. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you for listening to today's show. If you guys have questions about building your next VacCon, reach out to me by email at vacconjohn@vac-con.com. If you guys are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure to leave me a 5-star review. That's how I know I'm doing a good job with the show. If you're on YouTube watching or listening, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and make sure you leave a comment and let me know what you liked in the episode and if you had any questions. As always, work safe and buy VacCon.